Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mina Revolution. And we got a World War III alert. We really do have a World War III alert. But first, be sure to wipe your feet. Hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know Cool Figure is live. The hardest working revolutionary in the business is back. We have another live for y'all today. Salute. I appreciate the love. We got to get right to geopolitical information. This is very alarming as China has surrounded Taiwan. I think they didn't let up a little bit of the pressure. But as the U.S. tried to pretend like they want to make a move, I'm hearing that Russia stepped in with nuclear weapons and bluffed the U.S. I don't know if it's a bluff, but China let the U.S. know that it's tired of playing with them too.
This is WW3. We have China once again launching massive drills surrounding Taiwan. And this time, they're kind of pressing the issue and then sending a warning to the island's president. Now, they say that this is part B of a drill series that was initiated earlier this year. But this time, this joint drill is focusing on sea and air combat readiness, and they're targeting blockading.
See, China keep doing this, surrounding them. Every month or so, surround them. And every time they build up the forces. Until one time it's not going to be a drill. It's going to be the real deal. That's exactly what Russia did. Remember, before Russia went into Ukraine, it was a military drill. Oh, they was just holding drills on the border until it wasn't a drill anymore.
Some of the key Taiwanese ports in different areas around those ports. They're practicing assaults on maritime and ground targets, and they've just got them surrounded at this point. It's been speculated that at any time, one of these drills could go live.
It is going to go live.
And they could make an incursion or they could make a move.
I got a video still on this channel. I've been said as soon as I seen the situation happen in Israel, I knew this was going to happen because the U.S. is overstretched. You can't help Ukraine. You can barely help Israel. There's no way you're going to be able to help Taiwan. You see, this is the mistake. The U.S. overstretched their forces. You can't help Ukraine. You barely can help Israel. And Israel is their main crown jewel. They will give up Ukraine and Taiwan to save Israel. And Iran finna force their hand. They finna have to save Israel. China is the great strategic thinker. There's no way they're going to let this time pass. They will retake Taiwan and bring it back into their bosom, like they say.
It could all go into motion. At some point, it seems it's going to, unless there is an absolutely peaceful resolution that comes about out of this. There's going to be some war here. It seems the West is backing Taiwan. And of course, China's not just going to let this go. But the fact that they're targeting these areas, these ports, and you may recall when I spoke about the U.S. ports, there's a big red alert over the cranes that are used in those ports because 80% of them, 80+% of them come from China. And what we discovered here in the United States is that those cranes have modems built into them that are not supposed to be there. They were not contracted to be there. That is the situation right now in the United States. It's crazy. They could remote control them, access them at any time. And this is known now. I wonder if Taiwan has some of the same cranes in their ports. Or, well, I'm going to say a majority of the planet does, because China is the ones that makes these. Majority of them. Just like they control the processing of the rare earth minerals and all this other stuff. China just constantly making moves and flexing globally. So this is the latest. Join me for the live streams Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on
Now, China encircled Taiwan with fighter jets and warships as it launched large-scale military drills around the island. Beijing said the drills were aimed at sending a stern warning to separatist forces in Taiwan. This as the Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te vowed to protect the island, while the United States termed China's actions as unwarranted. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry said that it first detected Chinese aircraft and Navy vessels near the Bashi Channel. And according to the spokesperson for the Chinese military's Eastern Theater Command, the Joint Sword 2.224B drills are taking place in areas to the north, south, and east of the Taiwan island. He further said that the drills are focusing on subjects of sea-air combat readiness patrol, blockade on key ports and areas. They also practice an assault on maritime and ground targets. China has not declared any end date of these drills. Beijing has not ruled out using force to bring Taiwan under its control, and Monday's drills represent its fourth round of large-scale war games in the past 2 years. Lieutenant Colonel Fu Zhengnan, a researcher at the Chinese Academy of Military Sciences, said that a video shared by the state media that the drill could switch from training to combat at any time. If Taiwan separatists provoke once, the PLA's operations around the island will make their first move, Fu said, referring to China's People's Liberation Army. Now, apart from the fighter jets and warships, China's Coast Guard was also dispatched to conduct inspections around the island. The diagram released by the Coast Guard showed 4 fleets encircling Taiwan and moving in an anti-clockwise direction around the island. Taiwan said 4 formations of China's Coast Guard ships were patrolling around the island, but they had not entered its prohibited or restricted waters. Taiwan reacted sharply to the drills, with President Lai Ching-te vowing to protect the island. In a Facebook post, he wrote, "In the face of external threats, I would like to reassure my compatriots that the government will continue to defend the democratic and free constitutional system, protect democratic Taiwan, and safeguard national security."
That's why you're in trouble now.
Multiple fighter jets were seen taking off from the Hsinchu Air Force base in the north of Taiwan. Taiwan's defense ministry said that its outlying islands administered were on heightened alert, and aircraft and ships were ready to respond to any enemy situation.
Good, they're gonna get their chance.
And for more on this, we spoke to TVBS correspondent Vivian Shao, and also spoke to the Secretary General of the National Security Council and the Minister for Foreign Affairs for Taiwan, Joseph Wu.
Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te convened a high-level national security meeting on Monday, following China's launch of the Joint Sword 2024B military drills in the waters surrounding Taiwan. National Security Council Secretary General Joseph Wu confirmed that government officials met to discuss countermeasures.
Regarding this morning's drill, the president called a high-level meeting on national security. The president gave clear instructions to address the threat of China's military forces and the Executive Yuan's responses.
Earlier today, Mainland Affairs Council Minister Chou Chui-jen also criticized China for disregarding the Taiwanese people's desire for peace. Presidential Office spokesperson Karen Kuo urged China to recognize Taiwan's existence and respect the island's democratic choice.
Nope.
She added that China's military actions are disrupting regional peace and stability. These military exercises were expected. National security officials issued warnings on October 7, cautioning of potential Chinese drills after Taiwan's National Day on October 10. The People's Liberation Army has not disclosed how long the drills will last, but will reassure the public that Taiwan is monitoring the situation. The drills will involve China's Army, Navy, Air Force, and Rocket Force, focusing on sea-air patrols, key port control, and joint combat capability testing.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our...
See, Taiwan going down the same route Ukraine went. You know, you should pick your friends better.
China said on Monday that it would never renounce the use of force to take control of Taiwan after ending a day of its largest military drills encircling the self-ruled island. Beijing said the drills were a stern warning to separatist forces on the self-ruled island. The military exercises, named as Joint Sword 2024B, came just days after the Chinese Foreign Ministry condemned Taiwan independence rhetoric from Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te on its National Day.
Tensions escalated at Taiwan Straits on Monday after China launched new military drills off the coast of Taiwan in what it described as punishment for a speech given by its president, William Lai. The exercises, dubbed as Joint Sword 2024B, were, what it said, a stern warning to the separatist acts of Taiwan independence forces.
China has always been committed to maintaining peace and stability in the region, and this is evident to the countries in the area. Therefore, if you are concerned about peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, the first thing you should do is oppose Taiwan independence.
According to Taiwanese Defense Ministry, the drills involved 17 Chinese warships and 125 Chinese military aircraft, the most it had detected operating around Taiwan in a given day. In response to China's drills, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense released footage showing air defense launchers, military vehicles, and naval vessels being maneuvered into position.
The Ministry of National Defense needs to make it clear that the PLA's irrational and provocative military exercises not only endanger security across the Taiwan Strait, but are also unfavorable to unhealthy development of across strait relations. They are seriously undermine the security in the Indo-Pacific region and threaten the rules-based international order.
Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense footage also showed Taiwan and unmanned aerial vehicles monitoring Chinese vessels and aircraft around the self-ruled island. The Eastern Theater Command said the drills Joint Sword 2024B took place in the Taiwan Strait and areas to the north, south, and east of Taiwan. Maps published by Chinese state media showed China deploying planes and ships to encircle Taiwan. The Chinese state media said later that the drills concluded successfully. China's new round of military movements near the island came days after Beijing condemned a speech by Taiwan's leader, Lai Ching-te, in which he stated that China had no right to represent Taiwan. Taiwan's security chief told reporters in Taipei on Monday that Taiwan will continue to maintain close communication with friendly allies. The development triggered reactions from other countries as well.
Of course, we are taking a close look, and it's always clear to us. We assume that nobody is trying to use force to change the situation between Taiwan and the People's Republic of China. But this does not stop us from taking a close look at things.
While in UK, Prime Minister Keir Starmer's spokesperson said that Britain has long backed the use of constructive dialogue rather than military activity to solve issues between China and Taiwan. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
So Putin has told the U.S., well, don't start the Taiwan-China party without me. And Putin has sent his nuclear weapons to get between the U.S., China, and Taiwan. You see, Putin, when you're a friend of Russia like China has been, Putin will go all the way for you. So the U.S. couldn't help China. The U.S. couldn't help Taiwan. Russia. This is bad news for NATO, man. Putin's feeling himself after he slapped him around in Ukraine.
For judging freedom increased by 6, but gold is
relevance on the part of Germany, and I guess it's a hope and a prayer by Zelensky. The fact of the matter is, this war only ends one way, and that's with the unconditional surrender of Ukraine on terms dictated to it by Russia. Germany has no vote. Angela Merkel ensured that when she lied to Vladimir Putin about the Minsk Accords. France has no vote. Francois Hollande and Macron after him, again, lied to Putin about the Minsk Accords. The West has no credibility. There's nothing the West can bring to the table. Russia doesn't care. Russia's destroyed everything West has put on the table. And if the West wants to accelerate this battle, to escalate, then Russia has told them, we will go up to and including nuclear war. That means a global ending event. That's how serious Russia is taking this. So no, this is just a joke. It's nothing.
One last question about Ukraine. Are there, as President Zelensky claimed over the weekend, this sounds ridiculous, but he did claim it, North Korean troops on the ground in Ukraine?
No. First of all, Russia would never allow foreign soldiers to come in and fight their wars. This is a nation that took 27 million casualties during the Second World War, and they don't want to take those kind of casualties, but they won't let other people do their fighting for them. This is about defending Mother Russia, and Russia will never outsource that to anybody. The North Koreans had talked about providing construction battalions in a non-combat role, working to rebuild Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson, Zaporizhia, the new territories. And there was some talk that they may be sending some construction battalions in, but the idea of North Korea sending combat troops to fight on the ground in Ukraine is absurd.
Switching over to Israel, over the weekend, the Israeli Defense Forces announced that a drone flown by or dispatched by Hezbollah killed 4 IDF members, all of whom were 19 years old, injured more than 70. Larry Johnson's sources revealed that one of the seriously injured was an Israeli general. How serious a blow is this? The numbers are relatively small, given the numbers of people that the IDF slaughtered in Gaza and even in Lebanon. But for the Israeli military and the Israeli people, how significant is this event?
It's the shock of having Hezbollah inflict casualties on an Israeli base that wasn't on the front line. It shows that Hezbollah can reach out and touch Israel at any time, and that Israel will never have a moment's rest. That's the shock. Israel is not a nation that's accustomed to fighting wars where they suffer, lots of casualties. And this is a war that's been going on for more than a year now. So, this kind of loss just piles on the loss they had the day before, the 2 losses they had the week before, the losses. And so the cumulative impact of these casualties is devastating to the morale of the Israeli people.
The IDF has apparently attacked UN peacekeepers. Do you know of any instance in which a UN member nation has attacked UN peacekeepers in another country?
So Israel does it on a regular basis. When I was a UN weapons inspector, I'd go to Israel quite a bit, and I remember being in Israel when There was this infamous incident where the Israelis fired artillery shells into a UN compound, killing UN personnel, but also slaughtering dozens of civilians who were hiding from the fighting. Israel has no regard for international law. Israel despises the UN soldiers that are there. They view them as providing cover for Hezbollah. And Israel has shown that it has no regard for the United Nations overall. So, this is just part of Israel's ongoing escalation and, just frankly speaking, affront against the international community and international law.
Has Israel banned the Secretary General of the UN from setting foot in Israel?
Israel has said that he is persona non grata, and they would not allow him to travel to Israel if he were so inclined.
Here's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Well, I'll let you characterize it, but here he is yesterday with his message partly in Hebrew, partly in English to the Secretary General.
I would like to appeal directly to the UN Secretary General. It's time for you to remove UNIFIL from Hezbollah's strongholds and from the fighting areas. The IDF has repeatedly asked for this and has been met with repeated refusals, all aimed at providing a human shield to Hezbollah terrorists. Your refusal to evacuate the UNIFIL soldiers makes them hostages of Hezbollah. This endangers both of them and the lives of our soldiers. We regret the injury to the UNIFIL soldiers, and we are doing everything in our power to prevent this injury. But the simple and obvious way to ensure this is simply to get them out of the danger zone.
Mr. Secretary General, get the UNIFIL forces out of harm's way. It should be done right now, immediately.
We regret the injury to the UNIFIL soldiers, and we are doing everything in our power to prevent these injuries. Who would accept that as truthful?
No one. I mean, no one. He's a liar. Israel is deliberately targeting the UN soldiers, part of a process of putting pressure on the UN to withdraw. He's speaking to the wrong people, though. The United Nations forces in Lebanon are there as part of a Security Council resolution passed under Chapter 6. The Secretary General is not part of the chain of command. He has no authority over these soldiers. The Secretary General runs the Secretariat, the administrative and technical aspects of the United Nations, but the operational aspects of the United Nations are run by the Security Council. That's the United States, that's Russia, that's China, that's France, that's Great Britain. That's who he needs to be talking to, the permanent members of the Security Council. This is just pure showmanship for Netanyahu. And, at some point in time, look, back during the Bosnia conflict, the Serbians, the Bosnian Serbs, were attacking UN peacekeepers in Bosnia. At that point in time, NATO intervened. The United States and NATO intervened and provided protection for the UN forces. That's the precedent that has been set. And at some point in time, the United Nations needs to do the same thing for these brave Irish peacekeepers in Lebanon. If Israel continues to attack, then NATO, the United States, need to come in and provide cover. And if Israel wants to continue the attack, then they should pay the ultimate price. That is the death of Israeli soldiers. That's what it's about. That's what we did in Bosnia. We sent in special forces. We had people calling in airstrikes to protect UN peacekeepers who were there under a mandate given to them by the Security Council of the United Nations. This is a Security Council issue. This is an affront against the international community. This isn't an affront against the United States, who voted in favor of this. Remember, you can't have Security Council resolutions if permanent members don't support it. If they veto it, then it doesn't happen. The U.S. has supported this and continues to support this, and this is Israel, sticking a thumb in the eye of the United States and the entire international community. At some point in time, this absolute disregard for international law cannot be allowed to stand.
Are any of the UN peacekeepers American troops?
No, there's no American troops there. We may have some American forces there as observers, part of the observer group on an individual basis. If you remember, there's the tragedy of Lieutenant Colonel Higgins, who was a Marine who was assigned to the UN forces in Lebanon on an individual capacity. He was kidnapped and executed by Hezbollah back in the 1980s, I believe. So you'll have maybe one or two there. I don't know what the status is right now, but in terms of organized forces, no, we don't send U.S. contingents to Lebanon.
10 days ago, Jeremy Lafredo, an American journalist who works for our friends at the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal, Anya Parampil, and Aaron Mate, was arrested, kidnapped by the IDF. They beat the daylights out of him. His lawyers filed an emergency application before the equivalent of a federal judge in Israel, who released him immediately from IDF captivity, but told him to be available to communicate with the IDF until Sunday, when he is free to leave Israel. Why attack journalists?
Well, Israel's always attacked journalists. Israel doesn't believe in a free press, especially when that press is broadcasting information that's not controlled by Israel. I mean, if you want to be the friend of the IDF, you embed with the IDF, you allow the Israeli censors to control everything that you publish, and then you're playing their game, putting out their narrative. Unfortunately for this journalist, he works for the Gray Zone. Max Blumenthal, Anya Parampil are very well known for their strident and vociferous opposition to what Israel is doing in Gaza. And the Israelis are sending a signal that, if you're going to say what you say, then there's going to be a price that you're going to have to pay. They charged him with, aiding and abetting the enemy by broadcasting information about Iranian missile strikes. But the same information that he broadcast had been cleared by the Israeli censors for other outlets, including NPR. And so he didn't, transmit anything that was new or could threaten Israel. This is purely a ploy by Israel to send a signal to Max and Anya and the Gray Zone and any other journalistic outlet there that if you don't broadcast what Israel wants, then if we get our hands on you, we're going to hurt you.
The United States announced that it is sending a THAAD, THAAD, defensive device, along with 100 or so American troops to operate it to Israel. What can you tell us about THAAD? Is it effective? Is it top of the line, or why are we sending it?
Well, it's interesting because some of the reports that came out said this is the first time the U.S. has ever done this. It's not. During the Gulf War in 1991, we sent Patriot batteries to Israel, and they were actively involved in trying to intercept Iraqi Scud missiles. In 2003, we sent Patriot batteries back to Israel under fear that Iraq might be firing missiles into Israel. In terms of the THAAD, we sent the THAAD there a couple years ago, 2019, I think, as part of an exercise. After the October 7th attack, we sent a THAAD unit back to Nevatim Air Base because that's where we fly in our equipment. That's the main receiving base. So we sent the THAAD there, and along with about 60 soldiers. I guess we pulled that out because now we're sending it back. The THAAD is an advancement on the Patriots, an advancement on the Arrow 2, the Arrow 3, David Sling that the Israelis have. It's a missile that allows intercept at a higher altitude, and it's linked to a radar, a very effective radar that I think an S-band radar that's able to detect and develop firing solutions on multiple targets at once. In theory, it's supposed to be a good system. The fact is, though, this is not a new system. It's been around for a while, and it's using technology and techniques that predate, the hypersonic missile capabilities. This is not a system that's capable of intercepting hypersonic weapons, especially if the hypersonic weapons flood the system, flood the zone, as Iran has shown its tactics. So, again, this is a system that's put in to try and enhance the defense of Israel. Clearly, it failed on October 1st, and the feeling is right now that Israel and the United States don't have a solution to the Iranian missile threat. The THAAD is supposed to provide additional capabilities to to deter. I guess that's the hope, is that you tell the Iranians, now we have something that can shoot you down, but it doesn't. There's nothing the THAAD will not be able to stop an Iranian missile attack. First of all, even if they fire everything, my understanding is there's 48 interceptors, very expensive system, by the way. And, if Iran files 200 missiles and all 48 work, I'm a simple Marine, but that still tells me that there's 152 inbound missiles that THAAD didn't get. So, this is just part of the political game the U.S. is playing by telling Israel, we have your back defensively, in an effort to prevent Israel from carrying out offensive operations against Iran.
What do you think will happen if the Iranians destroy the THAAD and kill Americans in the process? And maybe before you answer that, why are Americans going there? Are Israelis not trained or trainable in a short period of time to use this? Are only Americans able to operate this equipment?
This is an American-only system. The Israelis don't have this system, and so only Americans can operate this. At some point in time, I guess we could sell this system to the Israelis, but it has more capabilities than the Israelis need. And I think the feeling was that by jointly working with Israel to develop the Arrow 2, Arrow 3, and David Sling interceptors, that they would provide THAAD-like capabilities. Clearly, that's not the case. So now the THAAD is deployed. But what would happen if it gets hit? Well, I mean, the U.S. has no legal argument. If the U.S. engages Iran, then it's an active, participant in this conflict, and it will pay the price. They're not neutral. They're not, innocents. They are active participants. And then the question is, what does the United States do in response to that? I don't think Iran would deliberately target the THAAD system. They don't need to. It's not a game-changing technology. As I said before, the number of interceptors does not shift the balance of power to Israel. And if the Iranian goal and objective is to take out critical infrastructure, and the THAAD is being positioned to protect, Nevatim airfield, then never the two shall meet, perhaps. But what would happen if dozens of Americans were killed or injured? Then America would have to retaliate. We have to. I mean, I'm not saying that I would like this, but as a military commander, I would tell my president, and I would have told him before we go in, I said, by deploying these troops, you do understand that if they take casualties, we must respond decisively, because we cannot create the conditions under which nations around the world believe that they can strike Americans, inflict casualties, and get away with it. We have to deter people from doing this. So if Iran strikes us, we must hit Iran back hard, and we must be prepared to do that right now with the forces on hand. Are you ready to do that, Mr. President? That's really the conversation.
Do you think somebody spoke to him that way, or spoke to Lloyd Austin that way, or Lloyd Austin told him what you just said?
I can guarantee you if a Marine was involved in this, that's exactly how they would have been spoken to. I can't vouch for the Air Force and the Army.
I don't think General Austin is a Marine, or was a Marine.
No, he was Army. But he's dealt with Marines before. Look, I'm not going to denigrate the professionalism of the other branches. Anybody who is entrusted with the lives of American service members must protect those lives, which means you don't irresponsibly deploy them without a plan on how to defend them. And if they take casualties, then you must take out that which inflicted the casualties. You must do so decisively, or else we have a USS Liberty situation all over again.
I'm going to read to you from Israeli Channel 14, which was sent to me by one of our colleagues, Alistair Crook. This is about 15 minutes old now. Israel's retaliation against Iran will not be moderate. Instead, it will be significant and will likely cause Iran to respond. Israel will need to prepare for a significant exchange of blows that might drag the Americans in, which Iran certainly would not want. Israel will attack Iran before the U.S. elections. Netanyahu approved the attack plans on Iran, and the attack is expected soon. What do you think will happen?
Well, it's interesting because in parallel to this, we have a statement by a senior Iranian foreign ministry official, spokesperson, um, basically saying there will be no more back channel communication with the United States. Apparently, the Iranians and Americans were talking behind the scenes to come up with a scenario on how to avoid escalation. And somebody in the United States leaked out that Iran had agreed to absorb a limited Israeli strike and not retaliate, which is a complete deviation from Iran's stated posture. And by leaking this was a huge embarrassment to the Iranians. And so the Iranians said, "We're done." And now Israel's left with the following options: don't strike, do a moderate strike, but now we don't know, we being Israel and the United States, how Iran will respond because the U.S. blew it. I mean, you can't have these behind the scenes back channel talks and then go public with them. It's something the United States does on a regular basis because, we have to feed the press. But it embarrassed the Iranians, put them in a very difficult situation, and now they've withdrawn. And so I think Netanyahu had come to the decision point that he can't not respond. He has to respond. And since you can't differentiate between a moderate and a severe response in terms of Iranian retaliation, you might as well go severe. And now you're daring the United States not to do anything. This is the ultimate goal. This is a huge gambit on the part of Israel. They're going to begin something that, left to their own devices, they will lose in a conventional exchange, meaning that they will start to strike Iran. There's no way they can bring the firepower to bear on Iran that can suppress what Iran is prepared to fire into Israel. And when Iran attacks Israel this next time, they will take out $100 billion worth of critical infrastructure and shut Israel down as a modern nation state. At that point in time, Israel is desperately hoping that America will join them in continuing and furthering the strikes against Iran of an existential nature, meaning that they will seek to end the Iranian regime. That's where we're heading. And what I also say is that in the past months and weeks, the Iranians have made it clear that the fatwa, the religious edict that was passed by the supreme leader that prohibited Iran from having nuclear weapons, is no longer in play. That can be reconsidered by a change in conditions, and the conditions have changed. Iran is ready to go nuclear if Israel pushes them in that direction. And if Israel starts targeting Iranian leadership, command and control, or nuclear facilities, Iran will have a nuclear weapon in less than a week. They'll have 3 to 5 in less than 2 weeks, and they will use them against Israel and take Israel off the face of the earth. This is the direction we're heading, Judge. This is a very dangerous situation.
What direction are we heading with respect to American involvement 3 weeks before a presidential election?
Well, what I will say is there's no congressional. I mean, we don't see Congress convening, discussing war and the reasons why we would go to war. We don't see any effort by the president to come to Congress and say, "Hey, this is a dangerous situation. I think we need to have congressional hearings that empower me to carry out massive military operations if the conditions are met." I know we have a War Powers Act, but those are supposed to be for events that weren't predictable. We were a surprise attack. The president must respond. This right here is a deliberate lead up to a predictable conflict. Congress needs to be involved because, as I said, this is the kind of conflict, if it gets out of control, will involve nuclear weapons and will involve Americans perhaps being on the receiving end of nuclear weapons or maybe using nuclear weapons against Iran. I know the President of the United States has exclusive authority to use nuclear weapons, but war is war, and Congress is the only entity constitutionally permitted to take us into war. This is not an emergency. This is deliberate regime change type conflict that Congress should be involved in, and yet there's no interest on the part of Congress to have any such hearings.
I'm sorry to say that you're 100% correct under the Constitution. I was saying I'm sorry to say because of your last comment, there was no interest on the part of Congress to do its duty, which is to debate war and decide whether or not we should go to war. We have signed several international treaties which say we can only go to war against a country where we are obliged to defend an ally by treaty, not the case with Israel, or where the other country that on which we're going to declare war poses a serious, imminent, grave threat to American national security. Not the case with respect to Iran. We also have a president, and it's not just him. His predecessors have been the same. We don't like to consult with Congress. They like to just do things on their own. In what form would American aid to Israel take if Iran really unloads on Israel and Netanyahu feels trapped or defeated or desperate?
The United States has said consistently since the administration of Barack Obama, that it would not tolerate Iran developing a nuclear weapons capability, that this would be war. Obama took it straight up to the edge of conflict before he realized that he was going to war against a country that didn't have a nuclear weapons program, and he had left himself no option. So that's where the Iran nuclear deal came from, to get us out of the situation. Donald Trump came in and said that if Iran develops a nuclear weapons capability, America will go to war against it. And he withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And now we have Joe Biden saying the same thing. Under no circumstances will Iran be allowed to develop nuclear weapons capability. Judge, I just told you, Iran has nuclear weapons capability right now as we speak. They don't have a functioning weapon, but they have the ability to produce a weapon in a matter of days. And they have made the political decision through declaratory policy that this is what they're going to do if pushed to it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Iran is a nuclear power, which means that if Israel gets hit with existential force by Iran, stuff that shuts the lights out, shuts the water out, and Israel starts saying we have to target Iran's nuclear capability, and Israel says we need to use nukes. The United States understands that if Israel nukes Iran, Iran will nuke Israel, and so the United States may very well get into a preemptive attack against Iran using nuclear weapons. This is where we're at. This is the insanity, and we forget that Vladimir Putin just met with the Iranian president in Turkmenistan, where they have cut some sort of deal. They have an ongoing security relationship. I don't think Russia sits by and lets the United States use nuclear weapons against Iran. So now we're talking about a potential U.S.-Russia conflagration that could go nuclear. This is why Congress has to be involved. These are things that the American people need to be assured of, that their representatives are discussing. The potential of a world-ending nuclear event, because Israel can't defeat Hamas and can't defeat Hezbollah. Israel is committing genocide against people. Israel is a irresponsible rogue nation, and Iran is part of a axis of resistance that is taking Israel to account in a managed, responsible fashion. Iran didn't start this fight. Israel did by attacking Iranian diplomatic facilities in Damascus, assassinating senior Hamas leadership inside Tehran. Could you imagine during the inauguration of the next president on January 20th that we invited somebody, we the United States, because the president represents we the people, invites somebody to the inauguration. They sit in and they are there. They're in the inauguration. The president has them stand up. There's applause. They shake hands and all that. He goes back to his hotel and somebody assassinates him. Do we just sit there and go, oh yeah, that's okay? No, it's an act of war. An act of war. Israel has committed acts of war against Iran, and now Iran is responding in warlike fashion, but measured. Iran said it's over. We don't need to go on. But if Israel chooses to go on, that's because Israel is trying to make this an existential issue where only one side walks away from this. And the United States is going to get caught up into this.
Has Israel been dropping depleted uranium bombs inside Beirut, as has been claimed? And what is a depleted uranium bomb?
Well, first of all, I don't know, so I'd have to see do forensics on it. Depleted uranium is basically just that. When you have uranium that has a certain amount of the elements that we need to enrich it, as you enrich uranium, you pull the radioactive aspect out of it, and you're left with depleted uranium. It is basically very dense metal, and we like this because it can penetrate things. We use depleted uranium on bombs. A depleted uranium tip allows that bomb to penetrate concrete. We use it to take out tanks and anti-tank shells. We use it on 25 millimeter and 30 millimeter rounds, again, to take out certain armored vehicles with its penetration capability. Depleted uranium isn't so much about the radioactivity; it's a toxic metal, and when you hit, it catches on fire or it pulverizes, it creates a dust. And even though it doesn't have the kind of radioactivity that we normally associate with nuclear activity, it can emit low grade, I think it's alpha particles. So if you breathe it in and it gets in your lungs, you're going to get cancer. That's just a guarantee. You're also going to be poisoning your body. It can lead to birth defects. It can lead to any number of things. So it's a toxic substance that if we had any rational thinking, we would ban from being used. But we have integrated it so much into our weapon systems that we have put depleted uranium tips on bunker busting bombs, and we have provided Israel with bunker busting bombs. Whether those bombs actually have depleted uranium tips, I can't say, but there's a high likelihood that they do, and that these bombs were used as they were as the Israelis claim, to take out Hassan Nasrallah. 84 2,000-pound bombs dropped in one area to collapse the underground bunker. Then that's a significant amount of depleted uranium that's been injected into the soil of Beirut. And they will, if you just go study what happened in Fallujah and in Basra, areas of Iraq where the United States made extensive use of depleted uranium, the birth defects of the children there is mind-boggling. The health impact on people, high cancer rates, etc. But the thing that will turn your stomach is to go and take a look at the images of the birth defects. Massive spike in this. This is directly related to the depleted uranium. The United States pretends it isn't happening because we don't want to be held accountable for our actions. But Great Britain has acknowledged this in using depleted uranium in Kosovo, that there is an exposure threat to their troops. Other nations, Italy has recognized this. The whole world recognizes that you can't use depleted uranium except the United States, and apparently now Israel.
What does your gut tell you will happen if the Israelis strike Iran in some forceful way between now and Election Day?
There will be a nuclear war between Israel and Iran. Iran will strike back decisively. We're talking between 1,000 and 2,000 missiles. Israel will be devastated. The destruction will be absolute. The infrastructure will be destroyed permanently in many cases. And the level of casualties could be quite high, although Iran, I believe, will do its best to avoid civilian casualties. But when you put that many missiles in, there's going to be loss of life. Israel now is faced with an existential issue. They will use nuclear weapons as a signal to Iran to cease the escalation. But the moment they use nuclear weapons, Iran will activate its nuclear weapons and use them against Israel.
Does Israel have the ability to reach Iran with this weaponry without having to use jets that either require refueling or must fly over territories that won't give Israel permission to do so?
Yes, they have Jericho 3 missiles, which are intermediate range missiles that have more than sufficient range to be launched from Israel and strike targets inside Iran. They also have German-made electronic submarines that can operate in the Red Sea and get up into the Gulf of Arabia off the Iranian coast and fire nuclear-armed cruise missiles if that's something that they wanted to do. So they have a nuclear capability. It is operational. It can strike Iran.
Can anything the United States of America gives Israel protect it from Iran hypersonic missiles?
No, because we don't have anything in our own possession that can protect us from hypersonic missiles. We are defenseless in this case. That's just the fact. I know that the U.S. defense industry is desperately trying to adapt the Patriot to the operational parameters that we've collected about the use of Russian hypersonic weapons. And I know that we collected a tremendous amount of intelligence about Iran's capabilities are being fed into the system again to see if we can do tweaks in terms of the radars and what we can do with guidance, etc. But it's too late at this point in time. I'm not saying that if given a year or two that we couldn't come up with something, but right now the fact is Iran has a weapon system that cannot be accepted on a regular basis, and that if Iran floods the zone as they have done in the past, the majority of their weapons will get through and strike the targets that they intend to strike.
Scott Ritter, deadly stuff, but thank you very much for your incredible analysis. If this thing gets out of hand, will you come back here and help us follow it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was the scene at the Binyamina area south of Haifa after a Lebanese drone strike hit a military base where IDF officers were gathered for dinner. The attack has sent shockwaves through occupied Palestine, raising serious questions about how these drones were able to bypass Israel's famously multi-layered air defense system to hit such a sensitive military target. The fact that such an assault could take place right in the heart of Israeli territory has left many occupiers and Israeli citizens rattled, wondering about the weaknesses in their security apparatus. Unconfirmed reports have even circulated suggesting that Israel's Army Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, was assassinated in this attack. While these reports remain speculative for now, if they were to be confirmed, it would mark one of the most significant and disastrous developments for Israel's military leadership in recent history. Pro-resistance social media accounts have already begun celebrating the alleged assassination, with some hailing it as a massive victory for the resistance. Israeli media, on the other hand, has largely remained silent on this matter, either by choice or due to the complexity of verifying the information at this stage. Videos like this are often not promoted by YouTube, so we encourage you to help it reach more people by liking and sharing it with your friends and family. Subscribe to stay informed on the latest developments in Lebanon and Gaza.
You can hear the planes up here. We attack all day, both to prepare the area for the possibility of your entry and also to continue harming Hezbollah. Hezbollah today expanded its circle of fire. Later in the day, it will receive a very strong response. You will prepare. Today we will continue. We do not stop. We continue to attack and continue to hurt them everywhere. The goal is a very clear goal to return the residents of the north safely. To do this, we prepare the move of the maneuver, and the meaning is that your military shoes, the maneuver boots, enter into the enemy's territory, enter the village that Hezbollah has prepared as a large military post, with underground, with stay points, with jumping jacks to jump into our territory and carry out an attack on Israeli citizens. Your entrance there with power, the meeting with Hezbollah operatives there, who will see what it is like to meet a professional fighting force, very skilled with experience in combat. You come much stronger than them, much more experienced than them. Go inside, destroy the enemy there, go straight to destroy infrastructure. These are the things that will allow us to return the residents of the north later safely.
Interestingly, just 2 weeks ago, Halevi himself was seen urging his troops to prepare for the invasion of Lebanon. In his speech, he boasted that Israel's military would crush the Lebanese resistance and bring down its structures and infrastructure with overwhelming force. His words were confident as he laid out a vision of a quick and decisive military victory. But just weeks after making these bold claims, A drone strike on his troops has served as a harsh reminder that the resistance, despite its losses, is still very much a threat. The resistance appears to have endured the early stages of Israel's surprise attacks, which included intense explosions and the targeted assassination of key figures like Hassan Nasrallah, even though Levy has resurfaced to downplay the incident, praising the Israeli troops for their resilience in handling the situation. The reality suggests a more complex picture. Despite suffering heavy blows, the Lebanese resistance still seems capable of executing daring and damaging operations against the Israeli military. The IDF has confirmed that 4 soldiers were killed in the attack, though many suspect the true number of casualties may be higher. Israel has a history of downplaying military casualties to maintain its image of strength and invulnerability. As such, some speculate that the full extent of the damage may be deliberately underreported, with the media carefully managing public perception to avoid embarrassing the Israeli military. However, even the more conservative reports acknowledge that this drone attack is one of the deadliest strikes Israel has faced since it began its current military operations in Lebanon. Israeli officials, including Rear Adiem, Daniel Hagari, have been quick to release statements attempting to manage the fallout from the incident. Hagari admitted that the IDF is still in the process of investigating how such a breach occurred, given that no warning sirens were triggered before the drone struck the base.
אני נמצא פה בבסיס צבאי במרכז הארץ, סמוך לבנימינה. סמוך לשעה 7 בערב, כלי טייס בלתי מאויש של חיזבאללה חודר מלבנון ופוגע פה בבסיס הזה. תוצאות קשות, יש נפגעים. בשלב שאנחנו נמצאים פה עכשיו, שליטה מבצעית מלאה על האירוע, כל הנפגעים פונו לבתי החולים. אנחנו עכשיו עסוקים בליצור קשר עם משפחותיהם. כל החיילים בבסיס הונחו להתקשר הביתה ולעדכן את משפחותיהם שהם בסדר.
Hagari reassured the public, stating that the IDF has full operational control over the situation. He urged people to refrain from spreading rumors, emphasizing that facts were still being established. According to him, the Israeli military will conduct a thorough investigation into how a UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle, managed to evade detection and hit a base so deep inside Israeli territory. He acknowledged that this is not an isolated issue. Israel has been dealing with the UAV threat since the start of its latest war efforts in both Gaza and Lebanon. On the other side of the border, the Lebanese resistance has claimed responsibility for the attack. They described it as a swarm of drones targeting a training base belonging to the IDF's elite Golani Brigade. Lebanese resistance media outlets have touted the success of the strike as a demonstration of their ability to strike Israeli military positions, even as Israeli forces continue their ground operations in southern Lebanon. This attack seems to confirm the warnings made just days earlier by the Lebanese resistance media chief, who, in a press conference, chastised local and foreign media outlets for covering up Israel's ongoing aggression in Lebanon. He had warned that Israel would soon face the consequences of its actions.
Please address the Israeli enemy and tell them openly that you are wreaking destruction, killing innocent civilians, killing unarmed, defenseless, innocent civilians. Those media outlets cannot dare to the Israeli military censorship, who are not only launching a malicious campaign against us, yet laying a tight lid on their losses on the field following the successful military operations by resistance. Our country is reeling under Israeli aggression, yet it is regretful to see some Lebanese media outlets reporting the Israeli story without vetting, adopting the Israeli rhetoric without due auditing, reporting and circulating, some of them even carrying the threats and statements made by the Israeli chief of staff, even carrying the statements of the Israeli occupation forces live on air. even sometimes with translation that can perceive, carry out a psychological warfare, and not only that, but also carry a misleading, malicious campaign against the resistance movement, the Lebanese people, and their allies. And above all, they continue to instigate the people against the resistance movement. Again, regretfully, very few media outlets are adopting these practices. This is shameful. Yet the government is not moving a finger. The Information and Media Ministry is not even taking any action. Simply, the same applies to the National Media Council. The excuse is always that the state is not incapable, yet the excuse is it is all called freedom of expression. What freedom of expression? Those who are called, falsely called, media activists to post certain names of towns and villages and certain buildings stating that these are home to resistance leaders. Is it possible to see posts on the social media saying that these towns are home to weapons? This is a direct instigation against the resistance. Is it freedom of expression to incite the enemy against hospitals, civil defense, and paramedics? This intentional preemptive instigation act was taken as an excuse for bombing hospitals like that of the Baptists. Where is the justice minister? Where is the chief prosecutor? Where is the cybercrime bureau?
In the details of the attack, it was reported that the Lebanese resistance deployed a new type of drone, which, although not entirely unique, incorporated an innovative Russian fiber optic technology. This technology made the drone particularly difficult to detect or disable by Israel's advanced electronic warfare systems. The fiber optic integration helps shield the drone from electronic jamming, a common method used by modern militaries to neutralize aerial threats. This advancement allowed the Lebanese resistance to exploit the technological gap and breach Israeli defenses, showing how even incremental upgrades in drone technology can significantly shift the balance in conflict zones. An initial investigation into the incident revealed that 2 drones had entered Israeli airspace from the sea, both identified as Mirsad drones, also known in Iran as the Ababil-T. These drones, manufactured with guidance from Iran and upgraded with Russian technological support, were tracked by Israeli radars upon entering Israeli territory. One of the drones was successfully shot down by Israeli forces off the coast north of Haifa, an event that triggered sirens in the Western Galilee area, warning residents of the incoming threat. The swift response by Israeli air defense showed their capability to intercept aerial threats, but it was only partially successful in this instance. The second drone, which was being tracked by Israeli radars, managed to evade interception. Israeli Air Force, IAF planes and helicopters pursued the drone, but it dropped off the radar unexpectedly, likely because it flew extremely close to the ground, using terrain to hide from detection. This tactic is often used to evade radar and defense systems that have difficulty tracking low-flying objects. Despite initial fears, no further sirens were sounded, as Israeli forces assumed the drone had either crashed or been intercepted. However, the fact that they lost track of the second drone highlights a gap in their defense capabilities and suggests that the Lebanese resistance has become more adept at circumventing Israel's air defense systems. The Mirsad drone, also known in Iran as the Ababil-T, is a versatile unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV, with capabilities designed for reconnaissance, surveillance, and strike missions. Its development originates from Iran's Ababil series of drones, which are widely used by several groups in the Middle East, including the Lebanese resistance in Lebanon. The Mirsad drone has a relatively simple yet effective design, which makes it easy to produce, operate, and maintain. It has a twin-tail configuration and a cylindrical fuselage, with straight wings, providing it with the lift needed for longer endurance missions. The design focuses on functionality rather than stealth, though its small size and low radar signature make it harder to detect compared to larger drones or aircraft. Powered by a piston engine, typically mounted in a pusher configuration with the propeller located at the rear, the Mirsad drone is designed for efficiency and effectiveness. It is not particularly fast, with speeds ranging between 120 to 200 km/h. But this low-speed capability is an advantage for reconnaissance missions as it allows more time over target areas. The range of the Mirsad can vary depending on the specific model and mission configuration. Typically, it has an operational range of around 150 km to 200 km, but this can be extended if equipped with additional fuel tanks. It can remain airborne for 2 to 3 hours, providing ample time for surveillance missions or strikes on targeted locations. The Mirsad drone can carry a variety of payloads, depending on the mission. For reconnaissance purposes, it is equipped with electro-optical and infrared sensors, allowing it to gather intelligence day and night. These sensors provide real-time video feeds back to operators, enabling detailed surveillance of enemy positions or infrastructure. When configured for attack missions, the drone can be armed with explosives for kamikaze-style missions, effectively turning it into a low-cost guided missile capable of striking strategic targets. Navigation and guidance for the Mirsad are managed through GPS and inertial navigation systems, INS, ensuring accurate flight control. It is capable of following pre-programmed flight paths, allowing it to operate autonomously once launched, although manual control can be used if necessary. This flexibility makes the Mirsad highly adaptable to different battlefield conditions. One of the drone's key advantages is its ability to evade radar detection. While not a stealth drone in the traditional sense, its small size, low flight altitude, and relatively slow speed make it challenging for conventional radar systems to detect, especially those designed to track larger, faster aircraft. The drone's composite materials and compact design also help reduce its radar cross-section, enhancing its survivability. Launching the Mirsad drone is a simple process, utilizing a rail system that requires no sophisticated infrastructure, making it highly mobile and deployable from a variety of locations, including remote or concealed areas. Recovery is equally straightforward, with the drone often landing on its belly or using a parachute system. Some versions may also use skid-based landings on rough terrain. The technical features of the Mirsad align perfectly with the Lebanese resistance's needs for a cost-effective, easily deployable aerial tool capable of performing a wide range of missions. The combination of decent range, effective surveillance capabilities, and potential for armed missions allows the Lebanese resistance to conduct operations deep into Israeli territory or over heavily defended areas. The Mirsad drone exemplifies how relatively simple technology, when deployed creatively, can effectively bypass advanced defense systems, providing the Lebanese resistance with a significant tactical advantage in their ongoing confrontation with Israel.
The IDF revealed that as a result of a drone strike on a military base, at least 4 IDF soldiers were killed and 68 were wounded. Now, these are relatively small numbers compared to the numbers of people that the IDF has slaughtered in Gaza. But how do numbers like this, there are the pictures of the 4 that were acknowledged killed. Alistair says the true number is larger. They're all 19 years old. How do 19-year-old boys being killed and 68 of their colleagues being injured, how does that resonate with the Israeli public?
Well, the Israeli public will be even more energized to finish them off. That is, finish all the Palestinians off and finish the people that they see as threatening them in southern Lebanon. The point about this airstrike and its results is that that was south of Haifa, sort of, at a military base, mind you. But we knew yesterday that there were many casualties, and I'm glad to hear, or not so glad from the Israeli point of view, but to hear that that there were more than 4 killed, 60, 68. Those figures are severely wounded. We'll see what the final tally is, but this is not going to help escalate things. More important, in my view, are the views or are the efforts by the U.S. and by Russia to prevent further escalation. Perhaps we can get into that a bit later.
Does the IDF, does any military routinely reveal how many of its people have been killed and injured?
Not anybody, especially the IDF, but this was south of Haifa. It's well known that this was a military base and those people were killed. They took a day to publish these photos, but those photos are now available and people can mourn them and can say, wow, now we have to really hit out against Hezbollah. And of course, that's what Netanyahu wants to do. The problem is he's got UNIFIL forces between him and the rest of Hezbollah. He's got all kinds of major political problems. I don't know if the IDF, if the Israeli Defense Forces want to risk being openly called war criminals if they kill UN peacekeeping people in the southern part of Lebanon.
Has the IDF attacked any UN peacekeepers?
Well, there have been 3 who have been injured. Now, the Irish faced them down, as we talked about last time.
Surprise, Ray.
They did kill 2 Indonesians. And let's see, there was one other that was injured. There were 2 that were on a tower, and that the tower was hit by a sharpshooter. The Israeli commanding general in Ireland commented that couldn't happen without a deliberate, a very focused shot. They were injured, I don't know how badly, and those were also peacekeeping troops. I would mention that Joe Lauria has a piece in Consortium News today, which goes into the specifics of what UN peacekeeping forces in Lebanon, UNIFIL, UN interim force in Lebanon, what those troops who are there under Security Council mandate, what they're permitted to do, and one of the things they're permitted to do is shoot back. So where does that leave us? Well, will Gutierrez cave before Netanyahu's order, get out of southern Lebanon, or will he leave them there? And if he leaves them there, will Netanyahu start killing UNIFIL forces? If he does that, then those are war crimes, pure and simple. I have a meager hope that the IDF, its leaders would say, that we really want to shoot up the UN peacekeeping forces that we really haven't shot up very much for the last 20 years. I don't know. So there's a chance that even Netanyahu and his rightist leaders would not be able to force the IDF to go in and shoot up UNIFIL forces. Now, that of course depends on whether Gutierrez stays tight here and says, well, no, we're not going to withdraw them like you ask us to or demand us to, and see what happens. This is going to be really, really crucial over the next day or so.
Here's Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday, Sunday, October 13, making a public appeal to the Secretary General of the United Nations, and also making some claims about the manner in which the IDF operates. Please take a listen to this, Ray, and tell me if you think it's credible. Cut number one.
I would like to appeal directly to the UN Secretary General. It's time for you to remove UNIFIL from Hezbollah's strongholds and from the fighting areas. The IDF has repeatedly asked for this and has been met with repeated refusals, all aimed at providing a human shield to Hezbollah terrorists. Your refusal to evacuate the UNIFIL soldiers makes them hostages of Hezbollah. This endangers both of them and the lives of our soldiers. We regret the injury to the UNIFIL soldiers, and we are doing everything in our power to prevent this injury. But the simple and obvious way to ensure this is simply to get them out of the danger zone.
Mr. Secretary General, get the UNIFIL forces out of harm's way. It should be done right now, immediately.
We are doing everything in our power to prevent this injury. I guess there was injury to some UNIFIL soldiers. He cannot legally attack UN forces. Israel's a member of the UN.
Legally? Schmegally. Come on, Judge. Legally doesn't mean anything to Netanyahu. Again, it's probably a forlorn hope. But this would be manifestly war crimes, attacking, wounding, killing UNIFIL troops there. So the die is cast. Gutierrez has to decide whether he's going to bow to Netanyahu, or he's going to hang tight. And I don't know which he'll do, but either way, if he does the former, if he bows, well, then that's the end of any credibility for UN peacekeeping forces, pure and simple.
It's funny, when I asked you if Netanyahu can do this legally, one of the people that writes to us regularly during the show said, boy, the judge sure can be funny sometimes. I, of course, was attempting to be serious, but to underscore the point. Switching gears, Russian President Putin and Iranian President Pezeshkian had a surprise, public, ostentatious meeting over the weekend. We're going to run two clips, and then I'll ask you what was going on behind the scenes. First, President Putin greeting President Pezeshkian, and then President Pezeshkian saying why they're there. Chris, cuts number 2 and 3.
I am very glad, dear Mr. President, that there is an opportunity to meet you personally and discuss our current issues. Relations with Iran are a priority for us, and they are developing very successfully.
We have many opportunities now. We should help each other in many areas. Our viewpoints and positions in the world are much closer to each other than to those of others. God willing, we will take part in the BRICS summit and will do everything to sign agreements that will allow beneficial mutual cooperation.
Did they sign a mutual defense pact? Is that the reason they were together, or were they there for some other reason?
Well, one has to be careful with the nomenclature here. They're calling it a strategic agreement. It's tantamount to a mutual defense pact. It's been signed. It was blessed September 18th. It's all ready to go in draft. So why the delay? That's the conundrum here. And I have some pretty good information from people who watch this much more closely than I. One is an Indian diplomat, former diplomat, Bhadrakumar Kumar, who has a major report today, and he's talking about, why this sudden meeting? Why did Pezeshkian have to go to talk to Putin on the fringes of this lesser meeting when they're meeting in just 1 week for the start of the BRICS meeting on September 22nd. And he says, well, Putin has approved the draft agreement. What's holding it back? And I looked at Iranian media, and Pezeshkian has said, quote, I hope we will finalize the agreement during BRICS, end quote. He hopes. Well, everyone was considering that a done deal. So why the foot dragging on Moscow's part? Well, I can interpret that simply as Moscow doesn't want to encourage Iran to get more deeply involved with Israel once Israel counterattacks. Okay, it was October 1st that Iran did that masterful big attack, not killing any people, but destroying some of the military bases there in Israel. So that's October 1st. Now we've been on tenterhooks since. Yom Kippur is over. Now, what are the Israelis going to do now? Well, what the Russians are trying to do is say, look, whatever the Israelis do, don't go all half-cocked. And we're going to defer deciding this thing, maybe at BRICS or maybe even later. Last thing I'll just mention that after all this went down, after the meeting on the 11th between Pezeshkian and Putin, Putin held no press conference as he usually does. And a day or two later, the deputy foreign minister of Russia, Ryabkov, said this in public. We are closely and anxiously following the events in the Israel-Iran standoff, and the risk of a large-scale conflict is indeed high. The tendency to escalate to a full-scale conflict is a real danger. We call on all parties to exercise restraint. We are in intensive dialogue with the countries of the region, and once again, a major war can be avoided, but everyone must show restraint, end quote. So what I interpret this as meaning is that the Russians are doing their hardest, their damn most earnest to say, look, Iran, well, yeah, we have this thing but we don't want you to embarrass us by getting involved in a full-scale war where we'll have to say, well, that treaty really doesn't mean anything, or it does. Okay, so cool it. Now, on the U.S. side, Biden has less influence on Netanyahu, comparatively speaking. Whether he can constrain Netanyahu is another question. I find some hope in the fact that he's been able to, or rather, the U.S. military have been able to, since October 2nd, the day after the wide-scale Iranian attacks. But how much longer Biden or Blinken, probably not Blinken, but more important, the Defense Secretary Austin, talking to Israeli counterparts. I think that's in play here. We don't know what Israel is saying to Austin. We don't know what Moscow is saying to Austin, but the Pentagon is the key player here. The Russians are trying to tamp things down. I think the Pentagon is too. Whether they can overrule Biden and Blinken and not is another question.
What is the Kremlin's view of Netanyahu's bellicosity?
Well, the Kremlin has taken all wraps off on criticizing Israel. It used to be rather discreet, with the hope that they could still have some influence in Tel Aviv. No more. They're criticizing Israel for exactly what Israel is doing, war crimes. And again, now if Israel continues to take this next step and actually hit out against UNIFIL in southern Lebanon, well, those are war crimes, pure and simple, and we'll have to see how that plays out the next day or two.
Do we have any indication of how the EU or NATO views Netanyahu's bellicosity?
Jed, I have to say that they're not real players here. NATO is the United States, is the collective Joe Biden, if you will, the people who are making the decisions in the U.S. The EU is immaterial here. they'll all take the lead from the United States. And so the die is really cast here. With 3 weeks left before the election, I fear that Netanyahu will be able to persuade his associates, look, this is the time. This is our only opportunity. A 3-week window. Let's start a major war, and Biden will have to come in on our side. Otherwise, he'll fear losing the election.
Well, will Russia allow the United States to attack, not defend from, but attack Iran like John Bolton and Lindsey Graham want, unchecked? Or will Russia do something in response to such an attack? Bolton, as we know, and as viewers of this show know, has encouraged President Biden to attack Iran's nuclear capability, whatever it is. Graham, as viewers of this show know, has advised, well, Graham's advised the president to assassinate Putin. He's also advised the president to attack Iran's oil refineries. In my view, and I suspect in yours, neither of those is likely to happen. If they did, they'd be catastrophic. But if the U.S. does attack Iran, what will Putin do?
You mean if Israel does attack Iran?
If the U.S., if Israel attacks Iran, as Bibi ardently wants, as Bolton and Graham want.
Yeah. Judge, I think I can say with some confidence that's not going to happen. Okay. There's great resistance on the part of the Pentagon, and there are logistical problems. If the Pentagon does not allow refueling of Israeli jet bombers, the Israelis can't use their sophisticated F-35s and so forth. There are other logistical problems. It's a long way to those nuclear sites and even those gas fields. They have to overfly countries that will not give them overflight permission. And they're scattered, even immense, a very large, you look at the map, it's a very large country, and they're very artfully dispersed, all their nuclear facilities in various places. So I'm sure that the Pentagon is weighing in now with collective Biden and saying, look, if we encourage the Israelis to get involved in a major war, if despite your urgings, Mr. President, they go after the nuclear facilities and or the gas facilities there, you know, we don't want that, because everyone would expect, including the Israelis, for us to jump in full bore. And Netanyahu is counting on that. Why? Well, because there's only 3 weeks left before the election, Mr. President. And Netanyahu thinks that you're really kind of mousetrapped, that you would be forced to come in full bore to help Israel in a military sense. No one wants that in the Pentagon. No one really wants that in the IDF of Israel. So will Biden heed the advice of his military advisors, as he did 1 month ago on Ukraine, when Blinken and others were saying, we have to authorize these longer range strikes into Russia proper? The Pentagon said, no, we're not going to do that. Okay. So Biden backed down reluctantly. He was surly. They were just really saddened when he met with Starmer, the head of the Prime Minister of Britain, to give him the bad news. Put away your target lists there. We're not going to do that. Okay. So will they prevail this time? I think there's been huge influence between October 2nd, the day after the Iranian strikes, and now huge influence exerted by the Pentagon. After all, the bottom line is the Pentagon is not ready to get involved in a war in West Asia, nor in Ukraine. And my God, look what the Chinese are doing against Taiwan just over the last couple of days, encircling it with 9 Coast Guard operations and going through the Taiwan Straits, all as a demonstration that, look, U.S., not only are we defending our position on Taiwan on its merits, but do you really want to take on 3 wars at the same time? This is also big, Judge. I always add that China is full bore in there with Russia. And if there's trouble in West Asia, well, China has its own reasons to go in big time because they depend so heavily on Persian Gulf oil, but also they know that they're next. They're after Russia in the sights of the U.S. Neocons. So we have a three-front situation once again, demonstrated just this past weekend by a very intrusive Chinese Coast Guard vessels going through the straits and going all around Taiwan.
Let me just stop you because I want to get back to Israel, Ray. So the United States, we're going to put up a photo of this, is making available Terminal High Altitude Defense Area Battery, commonly called by its acronym THAAD, THAAD, to Israel. With THAAD come approximately 100 United States military troops. Are they a tripwire? They're going to be in Israel operating that thing.
Judge, there are so many tripwires on U.S. bases scattered throughout the Middle East. We don't need another one. If the THAAD gets there anytime soon, they may play a role. But, you know, Israeli defenses, the Iron Dome, and all these other things have shown themselves incapable of handling hypersonic missiles, which Iran has. So this is a gesture, okay? Now, my hope is that Biden said to the Israelis, look, okay, we don't want you to start a major war. And so, hey, why don't we give you some THAADs? That will help. Okay. So there might be sort of like a quid pro quo. That's an optimistic view of this thing, shared by a few others.
What happens if an Iranian missile attacking a THAAD kills a couple of dozen American soldiers?
That's already happened in Iraq, where we have 2,000 folks. In Syria, we've had another 1,000 folks or so. And that's part of the calculus. I don't think that would require a U.S. response of great escalation, but you can be sure that Blinken and Sullivan and others would argue for that. I would count on the U.S. military to put the brakes on that.
Right. All right. Now tell me what happened in China. Has the United States done or said anything publicly to the Chinese government about surrounding Taiwan with Coast Guard cutters?
Not yet, but of course, the Taiwanese themselves have pretty much provoked this by saying everything short of we want independence, and we're going to be independent. Of course, that's a no-no. And most Taiwanese politicians have pretty much avoided saying that in the past, but they've been saying it over the last week. This is a Chinese demonstration to say, look, that's a no-no. And besides, for all who look on the global situation here, we could cause lots of trouble for the U.S. You know, meanwhile, we have Trump saying that it is inevitable. Yeah, the Chinese are going to take over Taiwan. They're going to attack Taiwan, so we got to be prepared. Well, you know, there's no indication that China has in its mind to attack Taiwan. They're much more patient. Taiwan will inevitably become part of China, as was agreed 53 years ago, okay? And this whole business about Taiwan has been blown up out of proportion, but it's important for the Chinese to assert what they see as their rights here, not only around Taiwan, but in the South China Sea, where, you know, they continue to have dust-ups with Filipino ships and even now with Vietnamese ships who claim islands that the Chinese really claim as their own.
When you mentioned 51 years ago, you were referencing a federal statute which recognizes just one China and Taiwan as a part of it. I guess the former president and his advisors have forgotten about that.
Well, they were too young. They were in grammar school, the advisors. And the president, well, he doesn't get reminded of these. Now, Chaz Freeman, one of your guests, was not only instrumental, for God's sake, he pretty much crafted that incredible statement on China, which avoided the whole issue and let us live in peace and prosperity with China for the last 50 plus years. So, you know, Chaz is still around. Does anyone consult with him? No. I asked John Mearsheimer, anybody consult with you from the administration? He says, never in all my years as a professor of international relations. So it's a very inbred group. That's part of the problem.
Well, the neocons only talk to other neocons. If we've learned anything, if there's any truism in all of this, it's that, right, Ray?
Well, it's true. And one would think that the denouement has come now. I mean, look all the trouble they've gotten us into. And during these last 3 weeks, what could be an October surprise? How are they going to rescue themselves? Are they going to start a major war so that the current administration can seem very powerful and at war? And how are you going to vote against them? I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them.
Well, they don't have much time left. Ray
Anybody find it suspicious? Does anybody find it odd, the timing of what happened yesterday? And I'm talking about Trump's third or supposed third or fourth attempt. Now, most of us, we were waiting for news about what took place in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. We had people in Washington, D.C., North Carolina, and I do believe Indiana and Maryland hear this very loud crash. Some of them actually saw this very large aircraft fall out of the sky. There was one individual who actually recorded the smoke trail. Now, the problem is, in the day and age of TikTok and TikTok clout, we don't know who's telling the truth. We don't know who's creating these videos for clicks and views, but there were a couple other oddities that go hand in hand with what these people are saying. For instance, we had this Metro PD copter in Washington, D.C., circling the area at around 4 a.m., making some rather interesting moves, tracking something. And then around the same time, we had this very bizarre alert go out in Washington, D.C. as well, which left a lot of information blank. And then we had this conservative commentator walking through a very heavy police presence near the Capitol building. Now, some people are saying, why didn't the police stop him? Why didn't the police tell him to back off? But we don't know if this is the exact area where this crash occurred or whatever occurred. These police could be gathered up and heading to a specific area. So there was definitely some rather strange things that occurred that day as well, outside of what people are saying on TikTok and other forms of social media like Twitter. What I also find rather interesting as well is the lack of news. Now, you would think something like this would make the news, given the fact, like I said, not only do we have a lot of people talking about this on different forms of social media, but this heavy police presence as well that's never been explained. This reminds me of the Miami Mall alien story all over again, but at least when it came to the Miami Mall alien story, they gave us some kind of narrative that it was a bunch of teenagers inside the mall with sticks and fireworks causing chaos. But here there's absolutely nothing. And when there's a bunch of people talking about something on social media that may have occurred in the real world, usually you'll have news and media trying to debunk it and say that it never happened. But here, absolute silence, and that's rather interesting. While we are waiting for any new information as to what took place in Washington, D.C., and I have been really staying on top of this story, and like I said, there's absolutely no updates as of yet, another news story broke out that there was a third supposed attempt on Donald Trump's life. Like I said in the beginning of the video, the timing is rather suspicious because a lot of us, we were waiting to hear from news and media about what took place in Washington, D.C. and North Carolina. This story was really gaining steam. And then out of nowhere, we're now blindsided with a potentially a bigger story to sweep what took place in Washington, D.C. under the rug. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump is involved in this cover-up, but organizations bigger than Donald Trump, bigger than any other politician and so forth, will use other stories to distract us, and we are fully aware of that. And this third attempt was rather odd because we have a local sheriff, other law enforcement agencies are calling this a legit third attempt as they try to piece the information together. But again, as of right now, they are considering this a legit third attempt, and yet they let the perpetrator walk. He walks out on $5,000 bail. So you mean to tell me they are considering this a legit third attempt, the law enforcement agencies that arrested this individual, and yet he walks on lowball bail? Make that make sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. And I believe this individual's name is Vimm Miller. And what's up with these names? These names sound like code words. We have Crooks, Vimm Miller, and I believe the other individual as well had a very strange name as well. And they all sound like code words or code names. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. I never heard the name Vimm before. Maybe you have. But going back to this story, going back to what's more important, we have this person who's considered a legit third attempt person by law enforcement. And yet it's just weird. It's just strange that he walks on $5,000 bail. Now, I know that California is notorious for its low bail, letting people walk free after they commit a crime, but generally that is for theft, not trying to take out a former ex-president and a individual who's running for president again. Now, imagine a person being considered a legit assassin to a president, an ex-president, walking on $5,000 bail. That's just crazy. I mean, did they even keep him long enough to question him? That's what makes me believe that this story is some kind of distraction to what took place in Washington, D.C. There are also a couple other interesting things about this story. One, this story actually took place on Saturday. So this attempt, this third supposed attempt on Donald Trump, took place on Saturday, but many of us did not find out about this until late in the day on Sunday, after what took place in Washington, D.C. So my thing is, why were they saving this story? There are a couple news agencies that were running this story on Saturday, but they are very obscure news websites, and we really don't know when those dates were changed or if those dates were changed. But the only ones that were talking about what took place on Saturday involving Donald Trump, like I said, are very obscure news agencies that nobody would really go to. We're talking about big news agencies like New York Post, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and so forth did not run this story until late in the day on Sunday. One would think Fox News, out of any news agency, would be the first ones to report on the story as soon as word had gotten out, but they did not report on the story or let us know that a third attempt was made on Trump until Sunday, the next day, 4:40 p.m. So why were they saving the story? What is also rather interesting is that people that know Vimm Miller are saying that this story is absolutely crazy because he is 100% without a doubt a Republican. Not only is he a Republican, but he is 100% without a doubt a Trump supporter. Reading this article from New York Post, which was published today, October 14th, it's titled, "Armed Rally Goer Vimm Miller Says He is 100% a Trump Supporter and Has Never Shot a Gun." The article continues to say, the armed rally goer accused of planning a third attempt on former President Donald Trump claims to be a staunch Trump supporter who has never shot a gun in his life. He's quoted as saying, "Yes, I am 100% a Trump supporter," he told Fox News Digital. He's also denying a local sheriff's claim that he brought weapons to the Republican candidate's Coachella Valley rally Saturday to end his life. He's also quoted as saying, "This is a man I deeply admire," saying that he is a registered Republican who has been all in with Trump since 2018. Now, it's always possible that Vimm Miller is lying. He could be some kind of double agent sent to take out Trump. We don't know. We don't know the whole story. But again, I find it rather interesting if they are saying that he's lying, that this was a legit third attempt, that they are letting him go. They are letting him walk with $5,000 bail. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Miller also denied claims that he was found at the checkpoint with a passports and driver's licenses. None of those are fake, he said, noting that he is Armenian and has documents using his full Armenian name and documents that don't. So maybe that's where the name Vimm comes from, because he's Armenian. I did look it up. That is an Armenian name. So I do apologize to anybody that's named Vimm. But continuing to read from the article, it says he also criticized Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, who said he was far right and part of the sovereign citizens movement. The article also ends with quoting Miller saying, "They are saying that I'm part of these right-wing anti-government groups, Why aren't they naming these groups? Because it doesn't exist. Miller was arrested on gun charges, but promptly released on $5,000 bail. This article ends with, now while local law enforcement believe that this is a third attempt, while news and media are spraying this around as a possible third attempt, it ends with, no federal charges have been filed, and neither the Secret Service nor the FBI believe it was a planned third attempt. So again, this story was rather odd, and how it was being spread in the news as a possible third attempt makes it seem like, once again, it's a distraction to what took place in Washington, D.C. and North Carolina. Because nobody, and yes, I get it, two things can be true at the same time. Something strange could happen in Washington, D.C. and North Carolina, and there could be a third attempt on Donald Trump. But again, going back to what took place in Washington, D.C., there have been absolutely no updates to that story. Absolutely no news and media are talking about what took place in Washington, D.C. And the focus on Sunday became Donald Trump's third attempt. I don't know. This whole thing was very strange. It's very bizarre. But if any other updates come out, if there's any news updates, I'll definitely be the first one to let you know. I'll go ahead and make a video about it. But until then, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe.
Hey there, friends. Have you heard about the alleged third assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life? Maybe you haven't. This all took place on Saturday. Again, I say alleged because I have a video here that might change your mind and actually have you thinking in a completely different direction as to why this happened like it did. First, guys, I'm going to tell you about some friends of mine, X-Tech Tactical. I love these guys. They make a lot of aftermarket stuff for guns that you're probably not going to get in turns. Then they talked about homemade license plate, that he was a sovereign citizen. There was a lot of things that simply did not make sense. The guy also seemed to have offered information up. So nothing that they were saying made me think that Trump's life was in any kind of real danger. It sounds like we are dealing with a law enforcement officer. It sounds like a sheriff's deputy who hates Trump. Therefore, the way they act, they hate Trump supporters because they're so butthurt about Donald Trump. I want you to see excerpts of Vimm Miller's own interview to himself, essentially. He's got a website, America Happens. That's apparently Vimm's own website. Vimm being the guy who was arrested, right? And real quick, in case I forget to say it later, they were even talked about how they let him out on a $5,000 bond later on that day. First of all, 5,000 shows me that they didn't think he was a threat. They let him go. They didn't think he was a threat. But even that was a lie. There was no bond. They just let the guy go. So anyway, I want you to see some excerpts. I did shorten this because his interview is literally an hour and 15 minutes long. So I went through, no offense to Vimm here, but I took out a lot of the fluff that you can go look at. I'll post the video yourself. You want to go watch the whole video in its entirety. But I took out what matters to make my point that I'm trying to point out in this video. So you're going to see some edits in here, and that's why I'm not editing what he's saying and I'm not rearranging it. I'm still leaving it in the same order. I'm just simply cutting out the stuff in between so we can shorten this a little bit.
All right, guys. So this is Vimm Miller of the America Happens Network. I'm releasing this statement because of the false information that is currently being released by the police department, I believe, of Palm Desert, Indio, Coachella, and the Riverside County. And I will state that what I'm about to tell you is 100% true and accurate. The body cams and the surveillance footage in the police station, as well as all the evidence at hand, will reflect that indeed what I'm saying is 100% true and accurate.
So I think the thing to understand, first of all, is that Vimm lives in Nevada. This is very, very important as it relates to this story. The event that took place was in Coachella, California. Remember, we don't have to remind you about California's gun laws, right? Nevadas are very, very much different. You can do things in Nevada that you better not try to do in California. This is a perfect example of one of those. This guy, and he goes on to explain a little bit. I'm not going to play the whole clip of him doing this because it's a little long, but he talks about how he got death threats. So he is not a gun guy. He used to be a Democrat, actually. And the guy realized let's just say the error of his ways, and he has flipped. Now he's a staunch Trump supporter and a very strong Republican. In fact, he's run for office in Nevada as a Republican as soon enough ago, if that's a way to describe it, as 2022. So it's very important that you understand this guy is a very big supporter of Trump. One final thing I want to say that I don't think he did a good enough job of explaining in his own interview, and by the way, I'm trying to interview him too, I've reached out to him, is that the whole reason he was there, he had an invitation. You know how the press has come out and said that he had a fake, that he had doctored somehow or another this invitation as a VIP to come here? This guy is a campaign, works for the Trump campaign, like does things for the Trump campaign. He's considered, I don't want to say a higher up because that indicates hierarchy, but he's a preferred person in the state of Nevada. The state of Nevada, or the Republican Party of Nevada, sent him this VIP invitation that is legitimate, and Vimm says he can prove that. I haven't seen it, but he says he can prove that. That's what he showed the law enforcement. He has this from the Republican Party of Nevada inviting him to this event. So very, very strange. In fact, the sheriff talks about it, how there's two levels of perimeters. One is an outer level where you either can or can't drive your car into that outer perimeter. Then there's an inner perimeter. They let him go through the outer perimeter because he had that perfectly fine and legitimate paperwork that not only allowed him to get through that first outer perimeter, but even drive his vehicle inside that perimeter. That's how legitimate his letter was.
Every time I've gone to a Nevada rally and notified the police, it's been a non-issue. They've thanked me for the courtesy of notifying them. They've said, obviously, you can't take your firearms. I wouldn't even think of doing such a stupid thing. And they've been fine. They've been fine. And the critical mistake I made is, I guess, forgetting the location that I was in California. So I drive up with my special entry pass. And by the way, they're saying I had a counterfeit pass. That's a bunch of nonsense. I could prove that I had a special entry pass directed to me, sent directly to me by officials within the Republican Party of Nevada. I was an actual invitee to that event. So as I'm driving, there's an area where you enter the parking lot after you pass a sheriff. I pull up to the sheriff. I say, well, I should take that back. I'm not 100% sure he was a sheriff. He was wearing a sheriff vest, but a lot of those individuals were. And my assumption is that not everybody there was a sheriff. They were just trying to indicate that they worked with the sheriff's department. And so I drive up to this sheriff and I tell him that, in full transparency, I just want to let you know, in the back of my truck, I got, 2 lawful firearms, purchased lawfully, registered lawfully. And I'm just letting you know that that's back there as a courtesy, which is a courtesy that I always do. That police officer asks me to pull over. So I pull over, and just so everybody's clear out there, it's not like they found that I had firearms or did an investigation, blah, blah, blah. No, the body cams and the evidence will expose and reveal that I myself drove up to the sheriff and gave him the common courtesy and respect of letting him know about the firearms I had in the back of my truck. At this point, they make me pull over. A police officer comes to my window. And what I have to say about this particular moment is that knowing how some police officers behave, and I'm indicating that they behave in a fashion where they seem to not understand the laws and the Constitution, I'm usually more armed and alert. But when I was arriving there, I wasn't feeling well. I have certain health demands, I guess you could say, that require me to regulate my blood sugar level and also require me to have basically my water bottle, which I'll put a couple of different supplements in there that whenever I'm having issues and I feel like my blood sugar is all over the place, I drink some of that stuff and it helps me to regulate it, right? At this moment, I certainly wasn't feeling great. I wasn't at my sharpest. And when this police officer came to my window, I rolled the window down and he asked me to get out of my car. I got out of my car. He asked me to turn around, put my hands behind my back, which is what I did. He handcuffed me at that juncture. I said, "Why are you handcuffing me?" He said he's doing it for his own protection, which, I mean, we could talk about that topic as well, because I don't know ever in the history of humankind where there's been an individual like me that's rolled up and said, "I have 2 firearms in my trunk," clearly indicating that I'm not there to cause any problems. I'm not there for anything nefarious. But nonetheless, this police officer felt threatened when he's the one with the firearm right then and there. But I complied with him. I complied with him because my impression of most Trump rallies was that the police officers there were respectful of the Constitution and appreciated that I was upfront about the lawful firearms within my car. At this point, they put me in the back of a police car, which is scorching hot.
Well, first lesson right there is if somebody's not asking you about firearms, just don't tell them, because that sounds like that's what triggered this whole, we got to do an investigation. And it sounds like this deputy even lied about that, like they discovered firearms. No, that was the whole purpose of pulling this guy over. This guy had legitimate paperwork saying he belonged there already. So they were letting him through. It wasn't until Vimm actually told them that he had firearms in the vehicle when they told him to pull over. So very valuable lesson right there. If no one is asking, don't tell them. That's none of their business. Essentially, it sounds like this cop involved was a real jerk, and Vimm actually verifies that.
I'm in the back of the truck, and I'm demanding from this arresting police officer that I get my one phone call, which he refuses. He also refuses to tell me what's going on. He does ask me, well, he does come up to me and say that, and this is again reflected by the body cameras, which we're going to be doing a FOIA request on, or I should say a FOIA demand. There was another avenue to this, which is internal affairs report that I was told it was a way to go and attain those body cam recordings. So what this body cam will expose is that this police officer came up to me and he basically said that, look, we just want to make sure your law firms are properly registered, that they're lawfully purchased. You know, I say, sure. I tell them the exact locations of the firearms. I tell them they're welcome to grab the firearms and I have nothing to hide. And this was done under the guise of they just need to run serials to make sure that this is part of the National Registry and that it is indeed my firearms. Well, next thing these guys do is that they completely ransack everything in my car. And when I say ransack, I had 3 suitcases in there, including clothes, including crucial medication and supplements, including my laptop computer and iPad, camera equipment, tripods, recording equipment, basically all the equipment I would need in order to produce content. They go into such forensic detail with tearing my car apart. There's bomb sniffing dogs there. They're looking at the serial numbers. They're opening up everything in my car. I mean, they're checking the mufflers. They're checking underneath it because obviously they were on this frankly idiotic notion that I was there to cause harm. And mind you, the right thing I believe to have been done is when I asked the police officer, hey, I have firearms. And I actually said, like, when I first drove up there, I said, look, if it's an issue, I could do a U-turn and go away because, you know, I understand, you know, because I could tell from his reaction that he wasn't reacting the way our Nevada police would have reacted to that sort of comment. And I said, look, man, I could just turn around and go, man, I don't even need to go to this rally, you know, but they chose to have me apprehended and arrested, right? So they ransacked the crap out of my car, and lo and behold, they find absolutely nothing. I think it was clear that this was an attempt to find incriminating information or evidence upon myself, because carrying a firearm is protected by our Constitution. And say they found other, you know, something nefarious in there, that would clearly be a way to justify what they were doing. But there was no justification. During this time, I hear this arresting officer call me a maggot and one of those dumb Trump people to a female officer. And he didn't know that I had overheard what he said. And at this point, it becomes very clear that this arresting officer's goal was to make an example of a Trump supporter, was to persecute a Trump supporter having nothing to do with the law. That was very clear by his behavior, by how he spoke with me. And so they tear my car apart, and clearly they find nothing. Then this arresting police officer comes back and says that they're going to throw me in jail and that they're going to impound my car. Tow truck comes eventually, takes my car with all my equipment, my clothes, my medication.
That is infuriating to me. And that right there, what he just stated about them calling this deputy, calling him a maggot and a dumb Trump supporter or something, guarantee you that's your reason all this took place. This is a California nutbag that probably had an argument with his boyfriend that morning. So he's already mad. He's upset. And he's at a Trump rally where he hates everybody. These people, these anti-Trump people, are some of the most hateful people on planet Earth. It's from inside. They gush the hate. And they hate guilt by association anyone related to Trump. If you have a favorable thing to say, heck, even if you don't have a favorable thing to say about Trump, if you don't support their candidate, they hate you because they assume you're a maggot or a dumb Trump supporter, just like this deputy said. This was a message, a hee ha ha message that this deputy thought that he was going to make against a dumb Trump supporter. And remember, I'm going to go back and say this is a legitimate, how can I say this? A legitimate charge based on it being in California. He did have a magazine in that Glock, a loaded magazine in that Glock that accepted more than 10 rounds. So the cop knew that he had something on this guy, right? The reason for all this was unnecessary, but the fact that he had something and this was a Trump guy, he was going to make an example out of this guy because he could. Because technically, the law states that what he had in his vehicle was not lawful in the state of California. And this guy, by God, was going to make an example out of this person. Now, this next clip, this arresting officer, after several hours, finally got Secret Service and FBI over to talk to Vimm. And the Secret Service guy and the FBI, to me, no confidence, low confidence from me. But he thought that those guys at least would be smarter than this idiot cop. Turns out that maybe they were. They actually saw the BS in this cop story. They thought that this story was such a non-story and a non-issue that guess what? They didn't even interview Vimm. They did not even request an interview. They came over, talked to a law enforcement officer, read the BS on the wall, and decided, we don't want any part of this. And they left. If they thought this guy was the third assassin, they would have stayed. They would have interviewed him. He'd probably still be in jail, to be quite honest with you. They thought this was a nothing burger. But that cop hated Trump. Therefore, he hated Vimm, and he wasn't going to let this go.
They walk away. They go inside the room, and then the arresting officer comes out. He tells me, we're taking you to the jail. He's taking me to the jail. I say, wait a minute, man. You told me the Secret Service wanted to talk with me and the feds wanted to talk with me, which from the point that they apprehended me, I was looking forward to that because I was looking at the feds and the Secret Service as being higher IQ individuals and not driven by some sort of agenda of this incredibly corrupt police officer. And so I wanted to speak with them because I knew that if I speak with them, they're going to realize that there's nothing nefarious that I'm here for, and that this knucklehead over here, this so-called police officer, is really doing this to make a political point, to damage me, to cause me harm for his agenda or the agenda of whoever else was involved in these crimes against me. And I will say that clearly, these were crimes against me by police officers operating under the color of law. And so when this arresting police officer returns, he says, they don't want to speak with you anymore. They're all good. They said, it's fine, but I'm still taking you to jail. Again, this is reflected in the body cameras, which is very interesting that what I'm being called is the third potential assassin of President Donald Trump, and Secret Service and the feds don't want to interview me, that they don't see any value in interviewing me. I mean, think about that. Think about that. And understand the degree of flat out bullshit that's involved in that. Because if I was a serious threat, do you think the feds and the Secret Service would just be like, no, we don't want to interview him. It's all good with us. No, because these feds and the Secret Service realize that this knucklehead over here, this arresting police officer, is digging himself a deep hole. And they didn't want to get the federal government involved in that. And you know what? They did the right thing, because they left this as a state issue. Because, you know, they knew that this guy was making a mistake. I mean, this is an assumption, but it's a very apparent and clear assumption, because they would not behave that way and just let me be if even 1% of what this arresting police officer was insinuating. At this juncture, this arresting police officer takes me to jail. I get fingerprinted. I get my mugshot taken.
Now, at this point, he goes back and discusses the whole 10-round magazine thing again, and the loaded. He got 2 charges, or actually he got ticketed, as you see. Not charges against him, a ticket that says that he had a magazine in a handgun and that he had a double stack. Now, he talks about a double mag in here. Just understand that Vimm is not a, quote, gun guy. He got these guns because of death threats, but he's never fired either one of them, and he's not familiar with them. He doesn't understand what a double stack is or a single stack. So what he's trying to describe here when he says double mag, understand that they make a Glock magazine that is a single stack, and it only accepts 10. So all the rounds line up straight up and down inside what's really a double stack magazine, but they close it in and make it a single stack magazine, right? The double stack magazine, which is the standard magazine for a Glock, has them staggered and double stacked. So that's what he's describing in this clip right here.
The Glock is loaded, and you know, frankly, it's loaded, and in Nevada, that's not been an issue. I did not know that in California, you have to separate the mag from the gun. I learned that lesson, I guess, now. I guess the mag was a double mag or something. And what they cited me on was those 2 things. That I had a loaded firearm, which is the Glock, and I guess one of the mags was double mag instead of a single mag. And I had no idea that in California, that's a bad thing.
Now, I want to address one of the things here that was a question mark to me early on, and made me wonder if this was a legitimate story or not, because it stated that Vimm had multiple passports with different names on them, and I think driver's licenses as well. I think that's really important, because when you hear that, you're thinking, ooh, this is, you know, some CIA stuff right here. Sounds like this might have been simpler than what we thought. This next gentleman that I'm going to play this clip of is somebody who's come out defending Vimm. He's a friend of his from Nevada, and he gives Vimm didn't say it in his video, but this gentleman states in his video why Vimm had different passports, or at least with different names on his IDs, and here's why.
They talked about Vimm had different passports in his vehicle under different names. Vimm Miller changed his name when he ran for Assembly District 13. And the reason why he changed his name is because folks had a hard time pronouncing his name. Even I have a hard time pronouncing his birth name. And he changed his name so that you, the voters, could say it better and go to the voting booth and vote for him. Because usually a lot of candidates change their name. Ask Clark County District Court Judge Annie Alberson. She changed her name when she ran for judge. So it's no different from them.
So it's a really good, juicy story, right? It's really juicy whenever you say that, ooh, he had loaded guns that he took in there with him. He had a fake license plate. He had multiple fake IDs. It really makes you start thinking some covert stuff was going down. And it sounds like if you ask the real questions and wait for the real answers, you actually get a story that is nothing. But the sheriff's department, this was their statement that they put out as if either they didn't read the report, at least Vimm's side of it, or simply taking the word of the deputy who hates Trump people and hates Trump, or something's going on here. Because this statement by the sheriff's department, it sounds like the higher ups did not vet this story out and simply took what this hateful little sissy deputy was feeding them and they ran with it.
He approached the outside perimeter, gave all indications that he belonged there, that he was that he was a participant that was allowed to get into VIP and to and a press corps, and so he was allowed through that outer perimeter. As he got to the inside perimeter, where deputies were conducting obviously a more thorough evaluation of the vehicles that were coming in, there were many irregularities that popped up. The deputy noticed that the interior of the vehicle was in quite disarray. The vehicle had an obviously fake license plate, and that prompted further investigation from our deputy into why the person was there and what he was doing. During that investigation, the deputy eventually found multiple passports with multiple names, multiple driver's license with different names. The vehicle was unregistered, and the license plate was what we in law enforcement would recognize as one that is homemade and indicative of a group of individuals that claim to be sovereign citizens. And assuming the deputy assumes that he was part of that identifying group. So during the investigation, obviously those identification documents were found, in addition to a loaded handgun and a shotgun. What we do know is he showed up with multiple passports with different names, an unregistered vehicle with fake license plate, and loaded firearms.
So one of the reasons that this really alert officer picked up on that made them start questioning things, he didn't admit that the guy told him there were firearms in the back, which is why he made him pull over. He makes it sound like he was really keen to different things and that he saw that the inside of the vehicle was in disarray. Well, they have proof that it's in disarray because, as you heard Vimm talk about, they tore the inside of the car up with their little forensic audit of the inside and the exterior of the vehicle. But they make it sound like that was his key, that like it was like that before. And that's why, the officer went, that's a messy vehicle. Wait a minute. Is a messy vehicle against the law? In fact, is a messy vehicle probable cause even? Honest question. If you have a messy vehicle, does that give law enforcement the right to pull you over, ransack your vehicle, and throw you in jail for 13 hours and then let you go with no bond? Again, guys, in closing, I want you to understand this.
You try to assassinate.
If this guy were a real threat, first of all, he would not be out right now. Secondly, he would not have had a $5,000 bail. Absolutely not. This is a perfect example of how they use the law against people that they don't like. First of all, don't go to California, right? Just don't go. I know we always say that, but look, if you don't have to be there, don't go. This is a great example of how you can overlook things that make perfect sense that you should normally be able to do, like have a magazine in your gun and like having more than 10 rounds in it. Perfect example that you get complacent with those things in your state. It doesn't take much more to drive an hour over the border to wind up in jail like this. This guy is going to sue for a lot of money, and he'll win. He will absolutely win. Now, he's going to have a big fight on his hands because it will be in the state of California. It's going to have to leave the court system in California before he gains any traction on it. But I do believe he will retire a millionaire as a result of this. I just want you guys to know I have reached out to Vimm Miller. I've reached out to his friend that also posted this video and trying to get him to come on the show because I have a lot of questions. I have questions about the whole sovereign citizen thing. He did address that in his video, but it's still not clear to me what the answer is on that. But I tell you what, it looks like somebody has a mess on their hands in the state of California, and it just simply blows my mind that no one has tried to put out a statement clarifying this, that this guy who got locked up and railroaded is having to work so hard to clear his own name, because people who have the same information that Vimm just gave us and that I'm trying to put out there, They have the same information and they're not interested. They would rather get a plaque. And this is what I'm thinking. They're medal hunting right now. They'd rather get a plaque saying that they just thwarted the third attempt on the former president's life. They want a trip from Trump, even though they hate Trump. This gives them national media attention. They already even said, oh, you're not going to come here and do that. So it sounds like this department likes the fact that they're getting some attention, and they're not interested in the truth right now because it is giving them this national acclaim that unfortunately some of these law enforcement agencies so desperately desire.
Something big is definitely around the corner. Something massive is coming. They are planning something big because I just read one of the most bogus stories of 2024. And I don't know whether that something big is Project Bluebeam, the false stage alien invasion, or the beginnings of World War III. But like I said, something big is coming. Now, before I get into this article, I do want to mention Project Bluebeam for a second, because there are people that believe that this is a card that will never be played, even though we are hearing more and more about aliens and UFOs from our own government, more than we have ever heard before. From the span of 2023 to 2024, we have just been hearing nonstop news about aliens and UFOs. Now, prior to 2023, the talking point of aliens and UFOs was nothing more than swamp gas, weather balloons, a crazy, kooky conspiracy theory. Now, for whatever reason, post-2023, the government, the United States Congress, and so forth, really want us to take the talking points of aliens and UFOs rather seriously for whatever reason. I guess to get us mentally prepared. But it's not just the government, it's also news and media that are constantly talking about aliens and UFOs. We have researchers and scientists telling us there's a giant mothership possibly lurking in our solar system, sending tiny probes to Earth. Then there's this asteroid, which they also believe is a UFO, which is course correcting its way to Earth, and it's massive. So again, we are constantly bombarded for whatever reason between the span of 2023 and 2024 with UFO and alien talking points. But going back to what I was saying, there are people that are saying that the government will never play the card of Project Bluebeam. They'll never stage a false flag alien invasion because way too many people are onto their plans. Yet, there are a lot of people that believe that the government cannot control the weather, that they cannot manipulate the weather. And a lot of us are being pushed back when it comes to this talking point, that they don't have this technology to create hurricanes. Yet, we're supposed to make people believe that the government has technology that can bend time and space. There are people out there, a lot of people out there, that if you tell them the government is behind an alien invasion with very advanced technology, they'll just laugh in your face. They'll just call you a fool. They'll just call you a MAGA conspiracy theorist. So yes, just like we saw with this whole weather control, weather manipulation between the government, news, and media, and AI bots flooding the comment sections of social media, they can definitely control the narrative and have people believing that they are not behind any staged events when it comes to aliens and UFOs. Now, also, before I do get into this article, I do want to say that when I talk about Project Bluebeam, the false stage alien invasion, I'm not saying that entities do not exist. Of course they do, or I believe they do anyway. I believe shadow people exist. I believe a lot of cryptids exist. I believe there are higher and lower dimensional entities. Yes, I do. But the ones that will attack us soon are made in the lab. This is the exact talking point of Yuval Harari, the advisor to the chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, who, as of right now, are fast-tracking the 2030 agenda, the one world government. And he says this.
Is the end of human history, the end of human-dominated history. History will continue with somebody else in control. In 5 years, there'll be a technology that can make decisions independently and that can create new ideas independently. Maybe they'll be nice. Maybe they'll solve cancer and climate change, but we are not sure. I'm tending to think of it more in terms of really an alien invasion, an alien fleet of spaceships coming from planet Zircon or whatever with highly intelligent beings. This is what we are facing, except that the aliens are not coming in spaceships from planet Zircon, they're coming from the laboratory. If the humans are divided among themselves and are in an arms race, then it becomes almost impossible to contain this alien intelligence.
So, of course, like Yuval Harari said, there are aliens being made in the lab. And the purpose behind these aliens is to push that one world government. Because how are all these countries going to suddenly come together if they are divided? Well, you create a common enemy. But anyway, I do apologize. When it comes to Project Bluebeam, I can talk about that subject until I'm blue in the face. I can talk about it for days. But going back to this article, now, multiple forms of media have been talking about this story, but I'm reading it from Fox News. This article was published on October 13th and is titled, Unknown Drone Fleet Breached United States Military Base Airspace in Virginia for 17 straight days. What? I said what? Let me go ahead and say that one more time for the people in the back. Unknown drone fleet breached United States military base airspace in Virginia for 17 straight days. Now, here's what I found odd about this story. Why are they telling us about this now? Why are they releasing this now? Now, YouTubers were talking about this story 6 or 7 months ago. So this is something that was already known. Yeah, for whatever reason, they are releasing this story like it's brand new. But for 17 straight days, they let unknown flying objects, they don't know if they're drones, they're only guessing if they're drones, but they let unknown flying objects into the military airspace, restricted airspace, for 17 straight days. Make that make sense. This article continues to say, mysterious drones swarmed Langley Air Force Base for over 2 weeks last year. A mysterious fleet of drones entered restricted airspace and swarmed a United States military base along the Virginia coast for 17 days late last year, stumping the Pentagon, according to a new report. The Pentagon has no idea who these drones belong to that were flying unmanned in restricted airspace for 17 straight days. But I believe they know what they are. But anyway, they say anyway, they don't know if they belong to a citizen that has a hobby in drones. They don't know if they belong to China, Iran, and Russia, or supposedly are enemies anyway, if you believe the whole theater. But they have no idea what they are. So the question is, why didn't they just shoot one down to identify one? Well, that is a good question, because I don't know. Apparently, there's some kind of law that you can't shoot down or take down a drone or an unidentified flying object as long as it's not causing any harm. So that's very convenient. That's why I say I believe they know what they are, because there is no way they would allow foreign flying technology. If you believe, like I said, if you believe the whole theater that we have enemies in China, Russia, and Iran, there is no way they would allow the thought of one of their drones entering into restricted United States airbase. There's just no way. Even if these drones belong to a United States citizen and they were just flying them around for fun, and they entered restricted United States airbase for 17 straight days, you don't believe that they would shoot these drones down. You don't believe that. Wonder what would happen if one of these drones suddenly entered into Area 51. I wonder how long they would last for. There will definitely be some people that will believe this story. There will be some people that will say, and they always say this, they will say that my uncle or my peepaw, he flew a drone right next to Air Force One. He flew it right along Air Force One, and the president gave it a thumbs up. So Minutes of Horror, you're just spreading fear. You are a fearmonger. But anyway, I'm getting angry just reading the story. But anyway, Kelly described the first drone he saw as roughly 20 feet long and flying at more than 100 miles an hour at an altitude of roughly 3,000 to 4,000 feet. As a dozen or more drones followed, flying across Chesapeake Bay and then traveling toward Norfolk, Virginia, and through a space overlooking the base for the Navy SEAL Team 6 and Naval Station Norfolk, the world's largest naval port, according to the Journal. The report said officials could not determine if hobbyists or adversaries, such as China or Russia, were responsible for the drone fleet. Reports of the matter reached President Biden and resulted in 2 weeks of meetings at the White House in December of 2023. The journal reported those meetings included the Defense Department, the FBI, and the Pentagon's UFO office, as well as outside experts. So again, like I said, why are they telling us this now, almost a year later? Fox News Digital reached out to the White House and Department of Defense for comment. The DoD referred Fox News Digital to Langley Air Force Base for more information, but they did not immediately respond to an inquiry. Neither did the White House. 2 months before the drone fleet emerged in Virginia, 5 mysterious drones reportedly breached restricted airspace, now over a government nuclear weapons experiment site in Nevada. Now, like I said, they know what they are. And I guarantee you anytime between the end of 2025 and perhaps the beginning of 2026, we're going to hear that drones that they're going to say are UFOs or UAPs are attacking military base. They are attacking nuclear sites. And this is going to lead to that fall stage alien invasion. World War III or a major conflict has to happen first. And then we're going to start hearing reports, like I said, that UFOs and unidentified flying objects are attacking military sites, perhaps in the United States or even around the world. But anyway, I do want to hear from you. What do you make of this story? Please do comment in the comment section below.
That Donald Trump is poised for victory. I think it's fair for Democrats to be incredibly depressed. I think it's fair for them to be discouraged. I think it's fair for them to explore whether Kamala Harris should be doing more. Feel free to do that.
Top battlegrounds. Trump is now up 0.4 in all the battlegrounds. He is now winning 6 out of the 7 battlegrounds. I absolutely love to see the mainstream media have a complete meltdown. I love to see them crash out. And they have been on this copium run for so long. And now they're having to admit what most independent thinkers and people on YouTube, all over the place, they're not able to now any longer deny what the writing on the wall, what we've all been saying. Again, I'm independent. I have to keep repeating that because people think that I'm something other than that. But no, I am independent. I just don't drink copium. I like facts. I like reality. But my, oh my, Morning Joe does not like reality. But it's so sad when they have to face it. Take a look at this. And I want to show you the polling as to why they are now no longer able to lie and, deny reality. They can no longer try to lie to their audience. Now, let me take that back. They're still lying to their audience. They're coming up with different things. But you'll notice that if you go to MSNBC, if you go to CNN and a couple of different outlets, they aren't really talking about the polls that much. Oh, now they'll say the polls aren't true. The polls are discredited, but they were just loving the polls, when Kamala was on her honeymoon sweep. But the dust has settled and it doesn't look that good for them. Sorry, guys, if there's noise. I'm still in a hotel. There's some type of truck backing up back there, but you're going to want to watch this entire thing. I promise you, it's going to be worth it.
So that's the thing is this morning and also all week, we've been talking about the frustration among a lot of Democrats that maybe the message isn't breaking through to key voters. I mean, the polls seem so close every time a new one comes out, neck and neck. And there's this fear that Donald Trump is poised for victory. I think it's fair for Democrats to be incredibly depressed. I think it's fair for them to be discouraged. I think it's fair for them to explore whether Kamala Harris should be doing more. Feel free to do that. These things are all legitimate. I don't know what more she can do, especially given what happened, though, in 2016, because that was a trauma for anybody who loves this country, and a trauma that didn't end that day. Obviously, Democrats want to make up for lost time, as Kamala Harris has just days left to truly introduce herself to the American people. At the same time, it could be argued she's doing everything possible. Rallies with tens of thousands of people, talk shows, radio, late night TV, podcasts, town halls are next. You can't claim she's not doing town halls. She wants to debate. She's hitting the battleground states multiple times. She's sending her top surrogates out on the road for a 4-week blitz through swing states, including former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, encouraging and winning over Republicans, including Liz Cheney, top military brass, top economic leaders, even members of Trump's own administration, trying to tell Americans that she is for them, the rule of law, the Constitution, that she's not a felon like her opponent, that she's not a con artist like her opponent, that she's not an adjudicated sexual abuser like her opponent, that she's not a person who devalues the truth like her opponent, that she's an honest broker who will do her best at this time of peril.
Okay, so it's just a bunch of copium. She's doing all these things. Why isn't it working? And I'm sorry, it was kind of, if it moved and all this other stuff, I have to like stream it off of. Literally, this is from Real Clear Politics. But one thing I want to point out, she's talking about she's doing these rallies, and she's doing, okay, here we go. She's doing podcasts. Every single podcast, just look at them on YouTube. Go look at the ratio. Well, you can't see the ratio. You got to download a special kind of thing on Chrome to see that. Okay, that's a different story. But you're able to see every single podcast she's done, the ratios show how in the comments are killing not only her, but the people that brought her onto their podcast. Howard Stern, Call Her Daddy, All the Smoke, like all of these things have gone against her. And she's doing interviews. Look at what happened with 60 Minutes. Look at what happened. The View actually gave her the biggest blow of her entire campaign, of her this entire thing. The shills over at The View inadvertently destroyed her campaign with this one question. And she's drinking beer, late night when people, it's been out there that she's an alcoholic. She has a voice that, it sounds like she's slurring and just woke up. Like, none of these things are helping. Obama stumping for her. He comes out the gate putting down black men and saying, get back on this plantation. How can you vote this way? You just don't want to support a woman. Just going with this misogyny narrative. That must be it. Because Kamala Harris is really great. And people just give her a chance. I don't understand. Of course you don't understand, because you don't listen to the people. Your elitist bubble tells you that all of this should be working, but it's not. And let's take a look deeper into these numbers, because they keep wanting to say it's equal. It's not. Okay, they're saying it's equal because it's the margin of error. If she was just a hair of a point, not even a point, she's winning. That would be the narrative. But now, it's all equal. It's a toss-up. Nobody knows when the trend, and they know the trend is showing exactly what's going to happen. Top battlegrounds. Trump is now up 0.4 in all the battlegrounds. He is now winning 6 out of the 7 battlegrounds. Doesn't care about the national polls, which those are actually important, because now her lead in the not just the electoral college, he's winning the electoral college, but also her lead now in the popular vote is starting to dwindle and diminish, and Trump is moving up. But this is where it really matters. The battleground, that is what is going to determine this election, because the electoral college, Trump is up 0.4 overall. In Arizona, he's up 1. In Nevada, 0.2. She is only holding on to Wisconsin by a hair, 0.3. Michigan, he's up 0.9. Pennsylvania, he's up 0.3. North Carolina, he's up 0.5. In Georgia, he's up 0.5. Now, this is a polling average of putting all the polls together. If you look at the most recent polls, he's even higher. And their own internal polling is showing that everything is falling apart, and it's trending that way, and it's continuing to trend that way. And now they're just doing desperate moves. I remember there was a point where she wasn't doing interviews, and they were just like, well, she doesn't need to. It's working for her, when they were in the honeymoon state, when they were still in that whole Joe Biden's freshly out, and she was coronated as the nominee, in the coup. So now you see, now that the dust has settled and they can no longer spin the polls, the reality is setting in, and it does not look good for her. And that all this arrogance and elite that they have, well, she doesn't need to do it. Trump is just, he's 34, he's a good 34-time convicted felon, and he's a misogynist, and he's done all that. None of that is mattering to the American people, to the electorate. It matters to the base. It matters to people who, can't stand Trump. Again, like, as an independent, I'm not emotional about any of this. I don't get all invested in it. I just like to tell the truth and speak on what it is. And I've said this from the beginning. People I know, people in my family in particular, I told them that this was going to happen. I told them it was happening. But what I see is that a lot of people, who they don't want to accept it. And now reality is setting in, and they realize they don't even want to watch MSNBC anymore, because they feel like they just lied to them and just told them what they wanted to hear, instead of actually telling the truth so they could, have time to do something about it. It was the same thing with Joe Biden. They wanted to hide the truth about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And now they're trying to, Kamala is out here talking about, I've released my medical records, and Trump is hiding something with his. The nerve with what is happening with Joe. Where's Joe Biden? Is the man still alive? I mean, he's literally the walking dead. And the nerve to even do that. And now Trump is not doing a 60 minutes interview. I did. What? That matters to people. Anybody's going to vote because of that. When you were hiding from doing any interviews, and now suddenly that you're losing, well, you've got to get out there. Trump was doing podcasts, holding rallies, doing all that. And you were just hiding in the basement. They would just bring you out to do speeches on a teleprompter. But when it comes to actually, look, listen, guys, there's a reason why she lost. She was one of the first people out. She did in 2019 when she was running to be the Democratic nominee. She had to bow out even before Iowa, because she is a bad politician. Even the people who were dogging her back then, oh, now it's rah, rah, rah. They just love her so much, and she's the best thing ever. But she's not a good politician. She has not had to work her way to the top. And there is plenty of information of how she got to the top and how lazy she actually is. But guys, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about this. And yeah, I will see you on the next one. Bye.
Tell you something here. Number one, Kamala did not grow up like me. She grew up in upper middle class. Really, that don't matter. I'm voting on policies, and her policy sucks. So Obama, keep your mouth shut, okay? You're the gatekeeper. You kept the gate on a lot of black people being ignorant. Quite a few of them have awakened to the lies of the Democrat Party. So Barack Hussein Obama, kiss our, we voting for Trump.
This whole let's go after black men because Kamala's support is down with all men and black women too compared to other Democrat candidates in the past totally backfired on them. A lot of black men are responding to Obama right now for his comments. Obama called black men making their own decisions in this election cycle, quote, unacceptable. Well, black men, they have something to say.
Hey, Barack Obama, as a black man, this must be sad, man. You, Kamala Harris, and the Democratic Party. We vote for Trump, right?
Barack Obama gets called out after demanding brothers vote for Kamala Harris. So you had Barack Obama demanding brothers vote for Kamala Harris. Barack Obama ain't demand anybody else to vote for her. He ain't called nobody else out, just the brothers, right? Because brothers ain't allowed to vote for who they want to vote for their interests, vote for what they believe will be best for them and their families. You know what I'm saying? They got to vote for Kamala because Obama said so. This is what I got from all that, man. So you had a lot of brothers calling out Obama. You know what I'm saying? Brothers like, boy, I know you ain't talking Obama like Obama. You was the swaggiest president. You talk a good game. I give you that. You know what I'm saying? I give you that. But we don't want to hear all that, man. Brothers gonna do what brothers do, man. Everybody has the right to vote for who they want to vote for, not who Barack Obama tells them to vote for.
And the fact that didn't nobody even think about this lady in 2020 when she ran, it's just mind-boggling. Then y'all got signs up in the back, all them signs that say black voters. That was very offensive. That was very racist. And I'm gonna say that. That was very racist. If it was Donald Trump and he had signs up that said black voters, literally CNN would be spinning that all day calling him a racist. The stuff y'all try to pull over people's heads, man, is ridiculous.
Obama said what? I know they ain't brought Obama to try to think he gonna get some straightening somewhere. I just know they ain't did that. And then he gonna have the nerve to say, y'all better be glad Michelle ain't here. What he gonna do? What is Michelle gonna do? You calling out black men specifically for not voting for Kamala because she's black. But what did you do for the black men while you were there? What did you do for us? I'm trying to figure it out right now. You want to call us out of all the races? You want to call us out? You want to say that we supposed to just be supporting her because she black? Okay, what did you do for us? I seen you do a lot for the LGBTQ plus. I think I said that right. I don't want to offend nobody. You did a lot for them. You did a lot for the police too. You the one started back the blue. But y'all want to say Trump trying to get a police immunity. But you done brought your Newport smoking on here and want to say something and try to call us out. Call us out. I bet the people in Flint, Michigan still got a lot to say about you because last time I heard they still ain't got safe water. But you talking about us. Man, if you don't sit your down somewhere, I don't care if they... Wait, hold on. My bad, y'all. I was looking for a give because I done ran all out.
Obama. Who the hell are you, man? Who the hell are you? Talking to brothers like you somebody's daddy. Like we can't think for ourselves. And I need to put the word out about you brothers who were standing there with him as he, talks down on men, black men in particular. Y'all should have left. I don't even know why y'all stood there and listened to that foolishness. No. And let me say this too, Mr. Obama. I bet you wouldn't go and talk to black men in mega spaces like that. I tell you that. You know where to go. You sitting over there addressing black men in a safe space. You wouldn't dare come over to black men in mega spaces talking that crap. I guarantee you that. You ain't nobody's daddy, man. Acting like black men can't think for themselves. And when we do, we somehow don't like women. Man, if you don't get your sissy ass up out of here, yo, light the White House in gay color.
So Obama and all the Democrats said that all black men should vote for Harris. Meanwhile, she's married to a white man, but it's a problem when black men want to vote for a white man, but she married one.
The audacity of you to say to us that we are required and we better
vote for Kamala Harris and that we don't want to see a woman in a position. You're a liar. I remember in June of 2010, I was in Baghdad, Iraq, and I watched your State of the Union address as a proud young Black man to see a Black president on the television. But I listened to you as you told the American people that we would not spend any additional resources in Baghdad or in Afghanistan, and we're going to bring our troops home in December of 2014. Right then and there, I knew you couldn't be trusted. Why? Because I'm watching them build sidewalks, build streets, and construct buildings in Baghdad, Iraq in 2010, as you say we're going to leave in 2014. So now that you get on a stage or a platform and try to bully us and belittle us and try to make the world believe that we're not intelligent enough to see what you and the demonic Democratic Party is doing, you're the biggest problem to Black people, not the Republican Party. Just because our policies differ or our views differ or our perspectives and values differ, now you want to attack? No, Barack, you're a liar and you're a part of the problem.
I really genuinely need somebody to explain to me why Barack Obama thinks it's a great idea to go out here and have Black men vote for Kamala Harris and galvanize the Black male vote when this lady gonna do the same thing for us that he did, which is not a mother thing. Like, let's be clear, Barack Obama talking about this is now the time for you Black men to go out and vote for Kamala Harris. She needs your support. All right, we are obligated to do this because I'm going to pull out the race card out of my ass, the same as I pulled out the race card when I told you we were going to bring change to America. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. What? Yes, we got to reverse 8 years of bad George Bush policy. The Democratic Party has convinced Black people that Donald Trump is somehow already in office. This is how they work. They literally play the psychological mind game to say, if Donald Trump this, if Donald Trump that. Barack Obama, what did you do for the Black people? What did you do for Black people when you got in office, Barack? We gave you a Nobel. You were awarded a Nobel Peace Prize simply for being able to say you stood on the shoulders of Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, all the people that came before you. Did you live up to it? Did you do anything that was deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize before you got in office? No. Did you do anything that was deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize while you were in office? No. Did you do anything of substance for Black people? No. But we treated you like Moses when in actuality you were just Pharaoh. And I'm not saying you were Pharaoh like you were oppressive in Egypt, like Pharaoh was to the Israelites in Egypt, but you were Pharaoh in terms of you held a political office, and we elevated you to the status of Martin when you didn't even do half the work he nor Malcolm did.
So Barack Obama was in Pittsburgh and he had a few words to say about Black men. Black men aren't excited to vote for Kamala Harris. We aren't excited to vote for her. Why do you think that, Barack? Is it because that she is drop step one of the worst presidents we've ever had? Is it that she was the border czar and didn't do anything about the migrants coming over? Is it because she has to read from a teleprompter every time she does a rally or does something like that? Is it because Black men are just saying, you know what, maybe I want to vote a different way? Why is it that every time we have an issue, you got to attack us, Barack? You don't do the white man like that. You don't do Asians like that. You don't do Hispanics like that. But when it comes to the Black man, if we don't vote one way, then y'all want to attack us.
This message is for President Obama. First and foremost, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. Number one, I ain't going to vote for Kamala Harris. I think that she's going to make a bad president. She's a bad vice president. Everything she does, she tries to politicize it. And she hasn't shown the fact that she wants to put America first ever. So I'm not voting for that individual. Secondly, I think that it's really sad that you would come out against Black men and actually degrade them because they're not picking the person that you want them to vote for. All right. And the last thing that I'm going to say is the moment that I became a Republican and a conservative, that is when I got the most hate from the opposite party. All right. Being that I'm a conservative, being that I'm a Republican, I've always been accepted. For the little bit of time that I may have been liberal, I never heard anything from the Republicans. They never came out and called me slanderous things. They never came out and called me racist things. The only time that I ever started hearing things about my skin color and about, you know, racism or whatever was when I became a Republican. And that was from Democrats that were saying that. So no, I'm not going to be voting for who you want me to vote for. I'm going to do what I want as a man, and I'm going to be the man that I am. So you don't get to say anything.
So apparently the former president, Barack Hussein Obama, just called me out. I don't know about y'all, but that little soliloquy of yours, Barry, sounded awfully familiar.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Now, as one of those brothers who won't be supporting Kamala, the reasoning for this is actually quite simple. Yeah, we're done. We're done with the lying, the constant gaslighting, the identity politics, the old vote for me because I'm a black Democrat. Yeah, no. And a lot of black men specifically are finally waking up to this and fleeing that Democrat plantation. And you, Barry, are terrified.
There it is. Obama came for black men, and this is what happened. For a long time, black people have been disgusted by Obama's lack of support for the black community while he was in office. He had nothing for the black community, but he had boule parties. No economic development for black Americans, no tangibles, no nothing. And as a result, black men have rejected Obama. This has been the sentiment for many years, but it was never this loud. But now, since he tried to show out or crash out for the Curry Queen, well, black men showed up and showed out in front of the whole world. Yeah, everyone knows the truth now. Black people are not rocking with Obama in this era. We are not supporting Kamala either, or anybody associated with them. And listen, Kamala the Cosplay Chameleon going to a bunch of feminine black boule shills like Roland Martin or the Shade Room or the Breakfast Club, it's not going to change that. What you're going to find out is they have no influence over the black grassroots. We don't respect them. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. If Kamala Harris is having an issue with straight black men, who told her that she can change that by sitting down with a bunch of feminine men? Who told her that was the answer? Tell me what you think about this below. I want to send out.
Talk to me about this plan, just in summary, and how this will impact not only black men, but all black people.
Sure. So look, I grew up in the middle class. My mother worked hard, she saved up, and by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home.
We are exactly 3 weeks out from the election. And now Kamala Harris is finally making a desperate plea to the black community. I find this very interesting, what we're about to get into today, because she went on Roland Martin, roly-poly, right? And she also stopped by the Shade Room and she did interviews. And it's supposed to be all about black men in particular, but the black community, because the polls have come out and it's just a disaster for her right now. And so this is just a desperate move at the very last minute. And before we get to them, I just want to start with the facts. Let's look at the actual poll numbers.
Yeah, let's talk about young black men in particular. Sometimes there's a trend line. You know, I look at the polls all the time, and sometimes there's a trend line that I never noticed before and make me go, whoa. This is one of them, all right? This is the Democratic margin among black men under the age of 45 in presidential elections. You go back to November of 2012, what do you see? You see Obama by 81. Clinton only won him by 63. Then we're all the way down to Biden last time around by 53. A tremendous drop already. And then you take a look at the average of the most recent polls, and Kamala Harris is up by only 41 points. That is about half the margin that Obama won them by back in November of 2012. And this, I think, is, you know, when Barack Obama goes in last week when he was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, essentially talking to young black men, he made it seem like it was a Kamala Harris specific problem. This is part of a long-standing trend of young black men moving away from the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris is just the latest to face that magnitude of younger black men going towards the Republicans.
That was
Okay, so let's just give CNN some credit for actually telling the truth here, because we know other individuals would probably blame it on white supremacy, but they're really talking about the facts. The Democratic Party and their lies and their messaging is starting to expire when it comes to black men, in particularly younger black men who see the world differently now. And this is why Kamala Harris is scrambling here at the last minute, trying to pander to black men, because the writing is finally on the wall and they see, hey, we don't have a good chance of winning this election if we're already losing in this way with the black community. Now, it's not just black men, it's black women too. Look at this.
But here, there isn't a trend line almost until we get to Kamala Harris. So again, this is a black margin among black women. Look, Obama won him by 93, very large margin. Clinton won him by 93, a very large margin. Biden did a little bit worse at 85. But then you look here and you get a 71-point margin. Now, again, these are large margins, but the bottom line is when you're talking about the base of the Democratic Party, you would think that Kamala Harris would do very well among black women based upon history. And of course, she would be the first black woman president, but she's actually doing the worst for a Democratic candidate among black women since 1960, if this holds, John.
and again.
Okay, so since 1960, wow. So let's just get to the bottom line here. Is this more about the fact that she's a woman, or is it about the fact that we know she's ill-equipped to be the next president of the United States? Because her record is a disaster. Her ability to do interviews, it's a disaster. Her image is a disaster. Okay, there's a reason we didn't hear about Kamala Harris while she was vice president. Why is that? Because they had to tell her to stop doing interviews because she was making the administration look bad. Why is it now that she's finally talking to black people? Because she has no choice at this point. If it was up to her, she wouldn't be going on to the shade room. She wouldn't be sitting down with Roland Martin. She has to at this point. So that's how I see it. But before we go any further, let's look at this agenda that she has for black men. Watch.
One more thing I want to ask you before you go, and I think it's the fun part. I want to ask you about your plan for black men.
Yes.
It's something huge
Yes.
that you have just released this
Yes.
week. We're talking about 1 million loans that are fully forgivable up to $20,000
Right.
to black entrepreneurs, men and women,
Yes.
correct? Expanding access to bank accounts, expanding the child tax credit, many things that you're
Housing.
doing.
Don't forget
Housing,
my housing.
lowering rent, making it affordable to buy a house for
Yes.
first-time home buyers.
Correct.
Talk to me about this plan,
Yes.
just in
Yeah.
summary,
Yeah.
and how this will impact not only black men, but all black people.
Sure. So look, I grew up in the middle class. My mother worked hard. She saved up. And by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. I will never forget where I came from. Okay, by the way, my opponent, Donald Trump, was handed $400 million basically on a silver platter and filed for bankruptcy 6 times. So just keep that in mind about who's coming from where. I know the ambitions, the aspirations, the incredible work ethic that exists in our community. I know the dreams that exist, but not everyone has started out on the same base in terms of being able to realize their goals and their dreams.
Okay, just facts only before I give you my opinion. Number one, she wasn't middle class. Okay, can we finally accept that as a fact? Number two, Donald Trump did not get a loan for $400 million. All right, so there's that. And number three, no one cares. Even if it was true you were middle class, what does that have to do with you being prepared to be the commander in chief? It has nothing. Donald Trump was already the president. Okay, there have been plenty of presidents who inherit more money than former President Trump. So is that a knock on them too? I mean, that's what I don't understand when they ask her a simple question. Why does she have to break out with the middle class comment? Didn't she learn that already? Don't do that. It's been turned into a meme. You are a joke when you say things like that. Just give us the bottom line. So, of course, after about 2 minutes, she finally gets to the answer to the question, like, what are you exactly going to do? And she continues to pitch the policies that we know are not actually going to make an impact. Let's hear it.
I'm going to change so that the tax deduction for a startup small business, change it from what it is, it's $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000 to $50,000. And included in that, knowing that a lot of startup businesses then have overhead around, for example, what they need to do to buy equipment. For those who are startup and don't have the connections historically, a $20,000 forgivable loan for them to be able, for example, to pay to set up a really good website.
The website is not really going to be a deciding factor on whether I can launch my business or not. Okay. And it still speaks to the problem I've always had with the way that she describes these policies. Context matters. And she's placing the wrong policy in the wrong context. Why not just say, my number one way that I'm going to help entrepreneurs thrive in this country, whether you're blue, yellow, red, white, or green, I'm going to give you a $20,000 forgivable loan. Done. Period. Like, why do you have to tell me middle class, that you grew up in the middle class? Why do you have to take me, the scenic route? Just can we get to the destination and make sure it makes sense? So those were a couple of clips from the Shade Room, and I can link the full interview in the description below. But let's move to Roly-Poly, Roland Martin, and what she had to say about the corporate tax.
What will Vice President do if she's president deal with corporate tax rate? And so you talked about increasing it. Will that mean a certain cap? So let's say if you 50 million, 100 million revenue or less, will that go up, or will that corporate tax rate apply to all businesses?
So first of all, the corporate tax rate years ago was in the 30s. So I'm not doing that. But in terms of tax cuts for middle class families, my agenda is all about tax cuts for middle class families and no tax rate hike for anybody making less than $400,000 a year. But my approach is also about giving 100 million Americans a tax cut in terms of middle class tax cuts.
That didn't make any sense whatsoever. Okay, so can you be clear? Are you going to allow the Trump tax cuts to expire? That should be the first question if she was elected. Hey, Madam Vice President, if you get elected, will you be removing all of the tax cuts that Trump put into place? All of them, from the bottom to the top, right? So that's question number one. Question number two, she didn't even answer the question about corporate businesses, because corporate businesses, there's some only make $1 million on an annual basis and some make 100 million on an annual basis. So, and then of course, trying to provide a tax cut to middle class families, that's already been done. That's happening right now. Okay, so if you're wondering why she is so confusing when it comes to answering these questions as it pertains to policies, I think because she spends too much time doing this.
This man is dangerous. Not to mention, Roland, let's fast forward to right now. His staff won't let him do a 60 Minutes interview. Every president for the last half century has done one. Anyone who's running for president. Everyone has done it, except Donald Trump. He will not debate me again. I put out my medical records. He won't put out his medical records. And you have to ask, why is his staff doing that? And it may be because they think he's just not ready.
See, that's the mistake that they make. They cross the line with their obsession when it comes to Trump, that they don't even work on the fundamental thing as it pertains to running this campaign. Can you communicate your message effectively? And she can't, because she has Trump derangement syndrome. Every time there's a question about Trump, she starts to shake. Now, there's another clip that actually makes my point for me, by the way. But before we get there, do me a favor. If you're getting value from this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this channel. If you want to support us further, you can go to the link in the description below, grab yourself a t-shirt, or buy us a cup of coffee. Now, this clip sums up exactly what her problem is, because she's so focused on Trump instead of focusing on her speaking skills. Listen to this.
There's this whole, I talked with somebody once who said, if you just look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation. What does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland. What does it show you?
I don't know. I know that your record shows that you're the most liberal Democratic candidate to run for president. I know those policies that you truly believe in, not the policies you're trying to sell people to get votes. I know those policies will ruin this country. I know that. And I also know this isn't who you really are. You don't believe in what you keep telling people, okay? Because if you did, you would absolutely sound believable, but you don't. Why is it that you're losing support when it comes to black people? Why is it that you're the worst polling Democrat to run against former President Trump? There's a reason for that. And I think it boils down to the fact that people know that it's more likely that she is fake than she is actually authentic. So once again, as I've stated since the beginning of this whole nomination of Vice President Kamala Harris, this is all at the last minute for the Democratic Party. If they could go back, she wouldn't be the candidate. We know that. Joe Biden wouldn't have put up a fight there towards the end. We know that. But this is who they have to settle with at this point. And it might just cost them the next 4 years because she is not a strong candidate. She's ill-equipped to be the president. It's nothing to do with her gender. It's got everything to do with her record, her leadership skills, her level of competence, the way she goes out and explains her policies or the lack thereof, the fact that she's scrambling at the last minute to finally talk to the black community by going on black media. Oh yeah, but it's only 3 weeks from the election. What happened a month ago or 2 months ago? So I think that actually tells the story of her campaign and why it's headed to a defeat. So that's my opinion. What do you guys think about this desperate attempt from Kamala?
Well, tonight on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why Barack Obama came out trying to wag his finger and talk down on black men and treat us like we're not human beings, like we can't use our own brains, that we can't think for ourselves or anything, because how dare black men not support his, a fellow traveler, Vice President Kamala Harris. The reason why this man has came out is because what's been put out about polling about the election. Let's go ahead on and check this out from the New York Times. Black voters drift from Democrats imperiling Harris's bid, poll shows. Now they say Vice President Kamala Harris is on track to win the majority of black voters and has brought many back to her party since taking over for Biden. Still, a significant gap in support persists. Okay, so the first thing they show on this article is in 2016, Hillary Clinton had 92% to 7%, and she lost. 2020, Biden had 90%. Republican had, of course, Trump had 9%. He won. In 2024, 78% among black voters and 15% for Trump. This is why they are concerned, ladies and gentlemen. Now they go through here and they're talking about they was expecting basically black folks to show up for her with this first black female president thing. And you already know how we feel about that. So we'll just kind of go on down here. And they mention, of course, that she has trouble with black men. And much of the erosion in support for Ms. Harris driven by a growing belief that Democrats who have long celebrated black voters as the backbone of their party have failed to deliver on their promises. The polls show 40% of African-American voters under 30 said the Republican Party was more likely to follow through on its campaign commitments than Democrats were. Okay? So you got a brother say they sweep table craps off the table like we're a trained dog and say this is for you. 100% right. LaPage Drake of Cedar Hill, Texas, is just outside of Dallas, said the Democrat Party is saying we clap like trained seals. And Mr. Drake, who owns a tree removal service, said he would back Trump. He said, regardless of how people call him racist and stuff, he is for the country of America. Now, this is one of the first time things they look up here. Now, they conducted this September 29th to October the 6th. Now, they say all voters, Harris 78, Trump 15. If that stay like that, she lose the election. But look about gender. Black men, 70%, Harris, 20% Trump. 83% black women, 12% Trump. So with black women, they're having a problem too, because a lot of black women have walked away with black men. And it lets us know, black men, you still have a leadership position. The reason why black women will still stand in that party and going along with it is because you were over there going along with it. And you see, when you walked away from this Democrat Party. Look, you could clearly see the sisters have left with you. They're not too far behind you. All right. So they say black voters by age under 45, 77% Harris, 14% Trump. Over 45, 79% Harris, 15% Trump. Now we're talking about by education. You know, you have think about it, between the college educated and non-college educated, you just about the same about Harris, right? And so the black community literally is not lockstep, no matter if you got college education or you don't, okay? So if we still continue to go down here to the next one I want to show y'all is right here. So it's a percentage of black voters who think each of the following describes the Democratic Party more or the Republican Party more. It's the party of the working class. 18% say Republican, 76% say Democrat. Now, you would never have black people like this, okay? Why is this happening? Because they ain't done nothing for black people. Keeps its promises. 60% Democrat, 20% Republican. And that right there is hurting them. That is hurting them because when somebody look at you as a liar, because that's what it is. If you don't do what you say, you're a liar. Understands the problems facing people like me, 84%, 9%. Can fix problems facing people like me, 75%, 15%. Now, it still says, Ms. Harris' problems with African-American voters rest on the same issue that struggles with other constituencies do, their economy. And that's what it is. The 3/4 of black voters rated the economy fair or poor. And economy and abortion were rated their most pressing concerns. Man, abortion ain't none of my concern. The economy is. More than 7 in 10 black voters said they had to cut back on groceries because of costs. 56% said they had to cut back often. Fully 78% of black voters said race still posed significant obstacles to getting ahead. In that figure, 20% said the Democratic Party had no solutions to address the obstacles. Because the Democrat Party, ladies and gentlemen, is about the status quo. That's what that's about. You got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, in the beginning, when Biden got elected, he said that he is going to return things to the status quo. And you have to remember, the status quo is us being at the bottom as black Americans. And not only have they returned this to the status quo, it's worse now than what it was when Trump was in office. Ladies and gentlemen, it's worse. So this is why a lot of black people are feeling apathy. Some of them are going to vote for Trump because they want the economy back, the economy they had. Some going to choose the couch. Some may choose third party. Oh, she's in hella trouble. You see, you remember after the Democrat convention and Van Jones got on there. Oh, this is such about joy. And this is all about vibes. And, we didn't have all this negativity about this race stuff and reparations. Oh, you remember all that? Oh, it was so much joy after the Democratic National Convention. Just so much joy. And then now in October, she's crashing and burning in October. And the more she talk, the more people listen to her, the more people are being reminded of 2019. When she tried to run for president and she had to bow out. Why did she have to bow out the first time? Well, the more you hear her talk, the more you really don't like what she's saying. And she's being forced to talk because I think one of the best moves Trump made is not doing another debate with her. Putting her on a debate stage actually would help her campaign right now. This is why she's trying to talk crap to Trump, to try to get him, to get underneath the skin. So he said, you know what? I'm going to go debate you again. No, just do your ground game and let's see the best person win, right? Now, she's going to do a town hall coming this week with Charlemagne the God, supposed to be talking to black people, and they said to black men. So I really want to hear what she's going to say. Her problem, too, is people see her as fake because she can't get off the script. She repeats the same answers every single time. And I hope somebody tell her, ma'am, you said that like 10 times already. The exact same words. Could you actually say something different? I hope somebody tell her that. Because it is crazy how she just stayed to a script, literally, like an actress in a show. Politicians supposed to be able to move with the people. They're supposed to be able to give you the cuff, but not her, not this particular woman. Now, see, I knew this joy and vibes that they was all about, and all this big production they did at DNC, all that y'all doing, and you crashing and burning. And I'm telling you, each week that passed, the more and more she talk, the more and more people gonna say, "Oh, she's not it. She is not it." This is why the Democrat Party is panicking. The Democrat Party is panicking right now. They're panicking because they're looking at the clock, and the clock is running out on her. And the more and more they send it, this is why they sent Obama out. They say, "Oh, okay, Barack, we got to get you out of here because we let her do this on her own. She's really going to just crash and burn. So Obama, can you get out there? Magic Johnson, can you get out there? Democrat Shields, where you at? Hey, y'all need to be flooding these people's comment section. Y'all need to be going to their live streams. You need to be going to their Twitter spaces. You know, hey, listen, we're going to give y'all some money so y'all can join Phillips membership on African Diaspora so you can go in there and spew Democrat Shield talking points. Just what we got to do. We may have to give him some membership money so we can at least get our message out, right? Listen, this is what I'm expecting the Democrat Shields to do. And the Democrat think tanks are going to give them money to join memberships and join where we at talking. Because when you take their power away to leave a comment when you're live, that hurts them a lot. Saying it after the fact and just leaving a comment, nobody cares about that at that time period. So we're going to see a lot of ratcheting up. You're going to see a lot of Democrat shields come out overtime against all of us, including myself. But hey, I'm here for it. You know, Democrat shields, I told you, y'all are welcome to come have a conversation with me. Because you know what? Your girl losing. She's going to lose worse than Hillary Clinton at this point. Hillary Clinton she was way up in the polls than this lady is, and Hillary Clinton lost. So if she don't have Hillary Clinton numbers or even Joe Biden numbers, which he won, then how you expect this lady to win? A lot of black people is not feeling her like that. They're not. I'm not feeling them. I'm not feeling the Democrat Party either because black people are right. They don't keep their promises. Look what happened in California with Gavin Newsom and the Democrats out there. They set up here, did a reparations commission, had all these meetings, did all this stuff with a task force. Then when it's time to implement what the task force had to suggest, you don't want to put up the bill. Or if you pass a bill, it's going to be for an apology. Nobody care about no stupid apology. You don't get a migrants any kind of apologies. You give them money. You give them hotels. You give them access to cars, at jobs, food trucks, whatever. But with black people, you get a hot air, an apology. That's what you get. But migrants get resources. You understand? This is why black Americans are saying, man, the hell with the Democrat Party. If you don't invest in the black community, then you're not getting a vote. You can't pull what you didn't put in. It's like going to a well and expecting water out of a well, and you are not having no water in that well. Where you going to get the water from? You can't pull from an empty well. And that's what the Democrats think they can do, pulling from an empty well. And then they already setting up their venom. See, black men, we are going to be to blame. Not the white men that voted for Trump or the white women that voted for Trump. Not the Hispanic men and women that voted for Trump. Not the Asian men and women. Oh, no. Only black American men. You're going to be the only one blamed if Trump wins the White House. I'm cool with that because, like I said, I'm used of being treated by this society, and even in our own community, they have a hate, barely like relationship with black American men. And listen, every black American man know society has a hate / barely like relationship with us. So for you to get mad and say, oh, y'all black men ruined everything, I don't care. We don't care. Because when black men were voting for Democrat, they were prioritizing men of other groups. They was giving migrant men the jobs, the money, the whatever. So you know what? If black American men got to suffer, then all these men need to suffer right with us, right? Let's make it even and fair. If you want black American men to vote for you, do something for black American men. And hot air is not going to fix it. The Biden-Harris administration screwed up the economy. They screwed up society and messed with our pocketbooks. And black men care about their pocketbook. We don't care about no color. We care about our pocketbook. That's why Harris is in trouble. Barack Obama can't come do nothing to save her. Michelle Obama can't come out and say nothing. Nobody can come out and say nothing at this point because every freaking day we go to the grocery store, we are reminded of what Kamala Harris has done to the economy of America. We're reminded. See, but this economy don't affect Barack Obama. He lives in Martha's Vineyard. He's rich and well off. You understand? Biden doesn't affect him. He got money. Kamala doesn't affect her either. Biden, he leaves office, he's going to go to Delaware and live his life. Kamala, if she loses the election, she better go back to California or wherever and live her life. She's not worried about prices. She's rich. What's she worried about that for? She's going to get her vice president's salary for the rest of her life. So, what she got to worry about? She good. I'm proud of Black America. I'm so proud of you because you're finally taking a stand and actually respecting yourself. Because the reason why a lot of people don't respect Black America politically is because you voted for them and they didn't give us a thing. Now you saying the hell with all y'all. I'm only going to think about my community. I'm only going to do what I need to do for us. I'm not getting involved with other groups, what they got going on, they crusades. I don't want to hear nothing about anything with these other groups. Democrats, you don't do nothing for us, don't worry about it. You do you and we'll do us. That's why Kamala Harris is in a world of trouble. That's why. And you can donate all the money you can to Kamala Harris. It's not going to fix it. It is not going to fix it. But I'm curious to see what happens.
A black man that's been around black men his whole life that knows, and I'm talking about working class black folks, knows what you do not want to do is disrespect black men and then expect them to do something for you. Abby Phillips' panel, it's about Obama, it's about the men issue.
Is Obama in the wrong here with how he's talking about black men in particular and singling them out in this way?
Yeah, let's start from here. He is still the greatest living retail politician. He's objectively a top 15 president, but even he can swing and miss sometimes. And here he swung and missed. Here's what he did. Harris has been very strategic about when and how she's spoken about gender and race. And he stepped on that. And when she hasn't spoken about it, he stepped on that message. And I think also with those comments, and there's more to this, but let me just start with this, is that he forgets, at least in that moment, that she doesn't get the benefit of being a historic first the way he did. She's a historic first woman if she wins.
Maybe that's part of the problem, that's what he's saying. Why doesn't she get the benefit?
Yeah. Well, she doesn't get the benefit, Abby, because black is black is black. And you guys have said she's black. Now, she could have been a historic first if you wanted to lean into her Indian descent or her Asian descent, but nobody wanted to do that. Everyone saw more political capital in saying she's black. Okay, fine. Sans Candace Owens investigative reporting. Fine. Say what you want to be. I still think I'll take Rachel Dolezal over Kamala Harris. She showed more commitment. Change the name. But no. I don't need to preface this and give Obama any types of props whatsoever. Folks. But when CNN is throwing Obama under the bus, I mean, even if it's not an all-out throw, it is a nudge to the small of the back. That's when you know you done. Like Bill Duke put it in Minister Society. You done messed up. You done messed up now, bro. You done messed up.
First of all, we have to remember that this is a thing. Like Barack Obama has a history of kind of chastising specifically black men. And like the question is whether what he said is relevant, right? Because there are a few black men, like there are a few white men who are more conservative than black women, and more white men are conservative than white women. But the point is, does this work, right? And if there's no evidence that it's true or that it works, and he doesn't do that with, like, you've never heard him say, why don't you white women stop being racist and vote for me or Kamala Harris, or they don't talk to Hispanic voters or LGBTQ voters. It's only specifically black men that he takes this tact that doesn't work.
Why do you think that is?
Because you know why.
No,
because
tell me.
Because Michael want to work in this big town, he don't want to say it. I tell you, because you cannot go calling out white people for how they vote, because white people have agency. See, white people they're not going to play a subservient role in this equation. They're not going to allow you to badger them and to say they're going to say, hey, I'm an American citizen, I get to choose the way I vote. And the way I vote is predicated on how I feel about the candidate. So they are free. White people ain't never been slaves and been under that type of pressure where they cannot choose a president. Folks, you can say what you want to say, but being black, we, over the last 60, 70 years, is a certain amount of social pressure for us to vote one way. Now, there may be some pressures that Republicans feel towards the establishment, and I've heard this about universities and what have you. Not even just white people. I saw a rant by Saga in whatever. Upset about the white girls that wouldn't give them any play because the BLM movement was at its heights and everyone was anti-conservative. But I digress. The point is, yes, Michael Harriot, who I usually don't agree, but he has a very excellent point. And we've said it on this show. I wonder if Michael's a listener behind the scenes. Is he trolling with an invisible account? Michael! You cannot call out white people for how they vote, because you should not be able to call anyone out for the way they vote, because that is something relegated only to the blacks, particularly the blacks, of the black male blacks, I should say. We're the only group that gets this type of treatment. Call us lucky.
The second most loyal, the most progressive group of men on the planet, they don't care about. They assume that they have their vote and nothing.
I'm sorry, man. I got to stop it. I don't want to do it, man, but I got to tell you, man, my stomach, man. I'm about to turn it to the first live stream to just throw up on it. I hate to do it. I'm holding back, man. You said we the second most loyal. These polls ain't loyal. Polls, as in politicians. Politicians ain't loyal. How is that something to brag about? We the second most loyal. Oh, God. This was my point from earlier today that some people disagree with me. I'm like, that's nothing to be proud of. Now, you can say I'm the second most loyal son. But that's your mother. You came out of uterus. She provided for you, hopefully nurtured you, raised you, bathed you, did everything for you, loved you, all these things. Tended to you when you were sick, rubbed your head when you needed affirmation, love, a safe place, kept you warm. Your very life, your very existence is in part thanks to her, okay? That's a whole different thing. Can you imagine having the thought in your head that you should be loyal to a party? A political party that is loyal first to its corporate sponsors and its donors. Now, this is not the talk of any other group except black men. And even Michael Hurriot, who was right at first, careens into this BS. I can only think of my man Paul Mooney, man. May he rest in peace. The black man, the old faithful hound dog, at the ankle of Massa. Right there, just right, good old sassy. There he is. Right where I need him to be. You can kick the dog, mistreat the dog, yell at him, curse him. And in 10 minutes, he forgot all about it. And he's right back in his spot between your foot and the leg of the chair. Friends, that's a sad narrative, isn't it? Why would men embrace this? Folks, if there is a pushback coming, and I do believe it is, if there is a concerted push of black men against the Democratic Party, it's because of this mentality. Young black men are not accepting this, and they shouldn't. No people should. White men shouldn't accept it. Latino men shouldn't accept it. Asian men shouldn't accept it. Indigenous men should not accept it of all colors, creeds. No, the man better. It pains me for that brother to say that. We the second most loyal. I opened up my mailbox today. I didn't get my second most loyal paycheck. Check my stocks, bonds. If I had them, I guess I would be able to. I checked my crypto wallet. No second most loyal crypto deposits. I asked Mrs. Black, did we get our second most loyal bank dividend transfer? Shameful. How can we be taken seriously with this type of rhetoric coming out of the mouths of those who are considered leaders and people with huge platforms? How can we? How? Let's keep going, Johnson. Maybe we'll find light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic. Maybe I'm going over the top. Maybe I'm tripping.
They don't have to do anything for it. And the point of this is that if you don't vote for Kamala Harris and you're a black man, something must be wrong with you. That is the subtext of everything that they're saying.
Well, this is what I would say to this, because I was there when the NABJ interviewed Kamala Harris in Philadelphia. And what Kamala Harris said then was that you asked that question with the assumption that black men are in somebody's pocket. You can't make that assumption. Black men are just like any other group. They have their interests, and I'm working to get their vote. I don't expect to get it because I am black. Right. I am working to get their vote. And that is what she said. And so I think we have to focus on what she said about black men. And I think we also have to focus on—
What? Is Solomon Jones distancing himself from Obama? Did Solomon Jones just distance himself from Obama? Also, I think that Michael Hurriot agrees with me. Actually, I think he's stating that in the third person. These are not his thoughts. He was lamenting about how the Democratic Party sees black men. That's how he sees black men. My respect, bro. My respect. I jumped the gun. It's not you. It's the system. It's the Democrats who see us as the lowly puppy dog. My bad. But this guy Solomon, I can't believe this brother just said that. Did he say what I think he said? He said, let's distance ourselves from Barack. We need to focus on this stuff that Kamala said, who I don't believe for a second at all, because she meanwhile got surrogates that are paid running out making the same claims as Obama. At least before Obama shat the bed. Obama just amped it up. But already her good friends, Dale Hughley, Ricky Smiley, Steve Harvey, were all saying the same thing Obama said, although less refined. They were saying the same thing.
the fact that most black men are going to vote for Kamala Harris anyway. That is the reality. But I think that in talking to black people every day, which I do as a radio host, I've heard some black men say, I'm not voting for her because she is a woman. I have heard that. I think that is reprehensible. I got to be honest.
Okay, so he's heard it. I mean, are we, when I say we, I mean the collective we as the country, afraid to just talk about a thing?
I think
is
you can
Obama
talk
saying,
about it, but if he's
calling
summoning
a thing a
Barack
thing?
Obama to fix a problem, you have to wonder if this fixes a problem. If I am interested in getting Kamala Harris elected, then I am upset because he hurt the thing, the strategy that she was employing to win.
Well, I think part of what has to happen, though, is that you have to have that conversation in private. There are some things you talk about in the barbershop when there's no cameras, right? There's some things that you talk about at home. There's some things that are family business. And I think the mistake that Barack Obama made was to take family business in the street.
I didn't have a problem.
Let me let Coleman in there.
Shaming voters is a terrible idea. It was bad when Hillary Clinton did it with deplorables. It was bad when Mitt Romney did it on the eve of the election. Even if there's a grain of truth to it and there's the occasional radio caller that's going to admit to that sentiment, let's actually look at the fact that Biden was struggling with black voters, and that was a topic of conversation over and over again. So it's not about sexism.
Let's take hold on one second. Let me take a look at this.
Man, it's going to be all types of reasons why someone won't vote for someone. It'll be all types of reasons why someone doesn't like spaghetti or lasagna or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. There's going to be people that don't vote for you because you're a woman, or people that won't vote for you because you are a woman of color, and other people that won't vote for you because you're from California, or people won't vote for you because they heard your type of music is not the type of music that they prefer, or what have you. There's a long list of things. Some people wouldn't vote for Mitt Romney because he was a former Mormon or a Mormon. Then someone vote for him because he was white, and someone vote for him because he was left-handed or right-handed, or Leo, a Capricorn, on the cusp of whatever, or Sagittarius. I don't know. I have no idea. But at the end of the day, when you have $1 billion, $1 billion, if you can't go stir up votes, rabble votes, entice votes, reach people, touch them, influence them, get them to vote for you, you gotta start looking at the messenger, the person in the arena. You gotta start looking at them. You gotta look at what you're working with. Come on. You should be able to get a number of people to do pretty much anything when you can shape the narrative, when you got 9/10. Kamala Harris has 9/10 of the political machinery at her beck and call. All of them were puff pieces, CBS, ABC. There were studies out there done. Media Research Incorporation. Media Research Corp had a poll going where they looked at CBS and ABC, and they determined that like 93% of their coverage of Kamala Harris was positive, and like 89% of Trump's was negative. How do you snag failure in a climate where 90% of your coverage has been positive? If we're going to point to the fact she's a woman, that's not mitigated by the fact she got 90% positive coverage, over 90% positive coverage, and her counterpart, her challenger, or the other side of the ball, is getting 90% or so negative coverage. How can you then bring up, well, she a woman, so, or she black, so? What? I just told you. If Mike Tyson gets in the ring and the other guy gets to throw 90% of the punches, and he has to put his hands behind his back and take him in the face, and Mike's still standing, somebody ain't got a good right hand. Either someone's chin is Teflon, titanium, triple D, or somebody's arm is made of ramen noodles. It's got to be one or the other, man. You don't tell me what, but the guy, I mean, Tyson, the guy is Lithuanian. He had 90% of the punches that he threw, uncontested. Talking directly to the audience, to the judges. I don't want to hear it, man. These are excuses, folks. These are excuses that aren't panning out. Now, man, don't tell me that there's always a reason to discriminate There's always a reason to discriminate. And there's always going to be things that people don't like you for. All you can do, and as a black woman, if that's what Kamala is, isn't she already conditioned to the reality that if you black, you got to work so hard? So what are we even talking about? I thought it came with the gig. So Obama, in a moment in time, in a campaign office in Pennsylvania, he's going to utter these words that's going to change the reality of life? Or is he just, as Michael Hurrier pointed out, being ineffective? Because nothing even Obama says will change the psyches of Americans at the bottom of the ninth or the 12th or the ninth inning. What's going to happen? Fourth quarter, 24 seconds left on the clock. And this guy wants to holler at the refs. How about talking to the people in the ring? How about talking to your player? How about you taking your player in the back, coach, and talking to her? I question if Obama even wants her to win. I know he didn't want her to run. Maybe he didn't really want her to win either. Just a thought.
Let's take a look at the numbers, because I think just to see what we're talking about here, there's been a progressive decline in overall support among Black men and, to a lesser degree, Black women for the Democratic nominee. Biden was doing better among Black men than Harris appears to be right now, based on some of the better polling that looks at these demographics. So I guess the other part of this is, you're talking about keep the business private. You're saying he's messing up the strategy, but the numbers are the numbers. And he's trying to fix a numerical problem that she has, a math problem that she has.
Right. I agree with most of what you were saying, Solomon. I don't think the problem is that he spoke it out loud. I think the problem is that he singled out Black men. In other words, there is a sexism component to this race. There was a sexism component to the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump race. Right. If Trump wins, he will have only ever beaten women. I can't give you a number, but sexism is in the mix here. But it's not Black men specifically. I think it's men, not Black men. And that, I think, is where part of where Obama went wrong.
Well, sorry, guys. The world is made up of men as well. Yeah, I'm sorry, Sackle. I'm sorry. America has men in it. It got men in it somehow. Yeah, they do. And hopefully that doesn't change, because I'm one of those guys that's a man. Yeah. And inconvenient truth. If you want to be president, you got to get men and women to vote for you. No way around that portion of it. Guys, what do you think about this? What's your thoughts about that segment? And if all it took was for a Democrat to be in office to solve our problems, wouldn't the problems be solved? Because you currently have a Democrat in office. So if Democrat in office is going to solve the problems, wouldn't the problems already be solved? Things are getting so bad for the Democratic Party, they're starting to spin out of control. The spin has done spun so wildly that the top just went crazy. Here goes a little clip I like to call Crockett that lost a sprocket.
Trump said. He said that we've got these cities and these towns that are being overrun by gangs and the crime is out of control. I absolutely agree with that. And guess what? It's the MAGA gang. It is the white supremacists that have decided to descend upon places such as Springfield, Ohio. So I agree with him. I just disagree with who the problems are. The problems are him and his minions. The problems aren't the people that have come to make our economy stronger, the people that have actually been able to.
See, this is the type of rhetoric I'm talking about.
Disgusting.
You say Tim Black is because Kamala is a woman, because she's brown skinned or people, whatever. This is the problem. Nah, man, that's not the problem. This is an official surrogate of the Kamala Harris campaign. And she just said in front of a bunch of people, in front of the entire world, that the problems in the inner city or a problem in a particular city or town that's experiencing an increased level of gang activity is MAGA. Now, you may not like MAGA. You may disagree with the hats. You may disagree with Trump's rhetoric or disagree with a number of things related to the campaigning of the MAGA. But you can't say that that is the cause of violence in the community. And it's this type of thinking, because I'm telling you, this is not about working class people anymore. The Kamala Harris campaign is not in touch with what working class people are on. See, this type of Democrat Republican nonsense is not what regular people think about when they're thinking about their safety or what's going on in their lives or in their communities. They're looking at, if you live in an area where there's too much of anything that's affecting your life, if your car's been broken in 3 times. When I lived in Forestville, Maryland, my truck had been broken in 3 times. I wasn't looking for Republicans or Democrats. I was wondering who the hell was the thieves breaking in my damn truck. And that's what normal people do. But the political operatives spin everything into a political sphere, to the point where they would blame a political faction for crime in an area that had crime possibly, or I'm pretty sure, before you even knew what their political faction was. It makes no sense. But they just throw anything against the wall to try to score a political point. And it only works if you have no idea what's going on in the ground, if you have no idea what real people are going through. And it's acts like speaking, it's like going to a community and speaking a weird alien dialect. And the people are looking at you like, what is this woman even talking about? They look at her and they respect her hair. They go, I know a sister like that. Representative Crocker reminds us of Black women that we grew up with, and some of that are even in our families. But when she starts talking, when she desperately starts flailing around to try to help Kamala by any means necessary, she starts to look like a damn fool. If you are not a member of the Tim Black Show, become a member. Yeah, go ahead and become a member, man. You right here at the door of becoming a member of the Tim Black Show. Go ahead and do it. Go to patreon.com, Tim's Take Live. Become a member, buy me 1 cup of coffee a month. And we good. We good. I'll shut up after that. Okay? I'll shut up and roast these Democrats after that. We'll get to the truth of this. This is foolishness. And worse than that, it doesn't speak to the issues that matter to the people. And this doesn't help Kamala Harris. It hurts her. Because it just shows how much more out of touch her and her campaign surrogates are to really what's going on. But let's let her finish, guys, because she ain't done making things worse.
The problems are him and his minions. The problems aren't the people that have come to make our economy stronger.
Does anybody believe they're migrants? Regardless of what your opinion is, does anybody think that there's a single migrant that crossed the border that said, legally or illegally, said, I'm going here to help America? What is she even talking about, man? Is that a thought in the head of any person that would go through the trek across the southern border, over razor wire, with sharks or with people smuggling people, whatever catastrophic crap, whatever dehumanizing, arduous travel, whatever, to get to America, legally or illegally, whatever? You think that there's a thought in their head that they were coming here to make America stronger and to help our economy? And do you think a person with any common sense, well, not common sense, she's a lawyer, she's got common sense, she's got degrees. I don't want to say she has no common sense. She's obviously a person with an agenda. Sounds like a scam artist. Crockett is a scam artist. She brew a sprocket. How could she not? How else can you describe this?
The people that have actually been able to help to continue to make sure that we got out of the big hole that he put us in.
What the hell is that? Folks, I think Kamala Harris she's contagious. in her demented word salad rhetoric of nothingness and oblivious, superficial nonsense, the stuff that spews out of her mouth that makes no sense at all, that does not speak to any needs of regular people. I think that Jasmine Crockett has acquired this disease. It has infected her nervous system. It is now presenting itself out of her face. I will repeat what she said, but let's let her do it. I don't know if I have the capability to say this.
Actually been able to help. Aren't the people that have come to make our economy stronger, the people that have actually been able to help to continue to make sure that we got out of the big hole that he put us in after COVID-19 with his ineptness. Like, yeah, I agree that there are problems in our communities, but usually it's some white supremacists on the other side, and he has yet to call them out. As it relates to him being a liar, I mean, that's
if this is all they have, if this is their big tool to fight back against MAGA,
that's all it'll never.
Folks, I was at 90-10. Now I'm at 90-5, 95-5. You always got to leave 5% chance. I mean, they got to turn this around. And
they do.
Kamala Harris has to turn this around quickly because this is careening out of control. Listening to Crockett with these talking points, this is a lawyer who's a shining star of the Democratic machinery, and this is the best she could do. She's saying that what's plaguing our communities
Making millions not off this scam.
A white supremacist. No, man, it's lack of money and investment, opportunity, gentrification, homelessness, poverty. These are things. Drugs, fentanyl, border. No, you know what I'm talking about? All these things are contributing to it. And it's a lack of good paying jobs, not just jobs. That damn Uber, Lyft, Instacart, those are not jobs that can build a family with. It's the cost of goods and services, rent, the mortgage, it's the bills, it's all those things falling in, caving in on people's lives. And it's where's the upside? It's once upon a time you can learn a trade and take care of one person could work and the mom could stay home if she wanted to, and they could raise the kids and we could have a house. And that doesn't exist. We got millennials who can't do that with both parents working. That's the reality. And that's and blaming MAGA or blaming white supremacist person on the other side of that. Yeah, it's just that it doesn't look, even if you say that that's a problem, that doesn't fix the problem, because the problem are all the things I listed. It's the lack of pay, the jobs, the pay not going up. It's the jobs not being plentiful that are the types of jobs that allow you to pay for all the things you need to pay for in order to live a stable life. It is the influx of drugs in the community. It is the lack of opportunity, resources, quality schools, all these things, like all of this. And she's not talking about any of it because she's spending all of her time dumping on Trump and trying to tie him into everything that's negative in our communities. And at the end of the day, Trump ain't president. Trump's not the president. So all the Democrats are doing is talking around Biden. It's talking about how things are going to be different when Democrats are not in control while trying to get you to vote for a Democrat. Get what I'm saying, guys? They want you to believe that everything will be solved if they could only get a Democrat in office, even though they have a Democrat in office. And if all it took was for a Democrat to be in office to solve our problems, wouldn't the problems be solved because you currently have a Democrat in office? So if Democrat in office is going to solve the problems, wouldn't the problems already be solved? We could win this game if we had LeBron James to come in. But you do have LeBron James. And in this case, you have the actual vice president of the current administration in a circuit saying the only solution that makes any sense is to put the same people back in. And that's a hard sell. I don't give a hell who you are.
Go figure. Follow me.